Chapter 2059. In the boundless void, on the planet where the head was sealed. Just now, he had burned 2/3 of his divine power and soul power. After the burning effect ended, his cultivation base would most likely fall to the peak of the 9th stage martial god realm, just like the head of Xingtian Supreme. As he thought of this, the White Tiger Sovereign began to panic. After all, the difference between the peak of the 9th stage martial god realm and the half-tribulation immortal realm was like heaven and earth. Yu Haoran, who had used the space law martial technique to teleport to hide on the broken planet, discovered that Supreme White Tiger did not continue to enter the crack in the void of the star field. Instead, he stood there in a daze with an unstable aura. He immediately realized that Supreme White Tiger had figured out his stalling tactic. Although there were less than 3 seconds left before the secret technique of burning divine power and soul power ended, Supreme White Tiger was still in a daze. It was the best time to launch a sneak attack. Therefore, Yu Haoran did not continue to stall and wait. He directly used the divine power and soul power he had just recovered and performed the Immortal Execution Sword technique together with the Immortal Execution Sword in his hand. When the sharp sword Qi, whose power had reached the peak of the First Tribulation Immortal Realm, was less than 100 meters away from Supreme White Tiger finally woke up from his daze. Although Supreme White Tiger woke up quickly, it was too late for him to perform the rule power martial technique in the face of the lightning-fast sharp sword Qi. Helpless, he could only use the peak strength he had obtained by burning divine power and soul power to take the attack of the sharp sword Qi head-on. Boom! Following a deafening explosion, the White Tiger Sovereign, who had been struck by the sharp sword aura, was forced to retreat 9 steps in succession. Yu Haoran, I surrender. Although the White Tiger had successfully resisted the sharp sword Qi with the peak strength he had gained by burning his god power and soul power, the sharp sword Qi had reached the peak of immortal realm. It had consumed all the energy he had gained by burning his god power and soul power. As a result, the strength of the White Tiger Supreme had dropped to the early 9th level martial god realm. When an early level 9 martial god faced Yu Haoran, who was at the half-tribulation immortal realm, the result was predictable. Therefore, the fear brought about by the threat of death made the Supreme White Tiger admit defeat for the first time in his life. Unfortunately, when faced with the White Tiger Sovereign's surrender, Yu Haoran's response was to use the spatial law martial technique of teleportation. At the same time, he appeared in front of the White Tiger Sovereign and pierced the space between his eyebrows with the Immortal Exterminating Sword. Then, the Immortal Slaying Sword, which had the ability to devour flesh, blood, essence, and souls, quickly devoured the Supreme White Tiger's soul. No! The moment the Supreme White Tiger Supreme's soul was completely destroyed, the miserable roar of the Blue Dragon Supreme resounded in the entire star field, the boundless void, and the Tianxian continent. After the miserable roar, the threatening voice of the Blue Dragon Supreme filled with hatred resounded in the entire star field, the boundless void, and the Tianxian continent. Yu Haoran, you dared to kill my second brother, the White Tiger. I, the Blue Dragon Supreme, will capture all the people in your prince's mansion alive and kill them one by one in front of you. I'll let you taste the pain of losing your family and friends. The moment the Supreme White Tiger's soul in the sea of consciousness was devoured by the god-slaying sword, in a primitive forest at the border of the central region and the western region of the Tianxian continent, inside a mountain range covered by a formation, countless auras of panic surged out. Impossible. Ancestor is still a terrifying existence at the half-tribulation immortal realm. No creature in this world can harm him. Nothing can happen to him. Along with the panic-stricken aura, a giant white tiger nearly 10,000 meters tall looked at the huge white tiger statue in the center of the square that suddenly shattered. He couldn't help but shout with an expression of disbelief. At the same time, Countless clansmen of the White Tiger family and the clansmen of the Blue Dragon family that temporarily lived in the White Tiger mountain range appeared in the square one after another. When they saw the White Tiger statue that had been erected for countless years shatter, their faces couldn't help but change. This was because the White Tiger statue that had been worshipped by the White Tiger family for countless years had formed a mental connection with the Supreme White Tiger. Through the White Tiger statue, the clansmen of the White Tiger family could communicate with the Supreme White Tiger in the endless void. The Supreme White Tiger could also send orders to the clansmen of the White Tiger family through the statue. The White Tiger statue that the clansmen of the White Tiger family had protected had no problem with age. Thus, the shattering of the White Tiger statue could only mean that the Supreme White Tiger had truly fallen. That's right. Knowing that the shattering of the White Tiger statue would affect the clansmen, the clan leader of the White Tiger family flew into the sky and pretended to be relaxed. Ancestor is not only a terrifying existence at the half-tribulation immortal realm, but he also has the blue dragon, the vermilion bird, and the black tortoise as his companions. Even if all the Supremes and half-tribulation immortal realm experts in the endless void join hands, they won't be able to harm them. No. However, as soon as the clan leader of the White Tiger family finished his confident words, the miserable roar of the Blue Dragon Supreme resounded in the sky above the Tianxian continent. That's the voice of our ancestor. A blue dragon divine dragon quickly flew into the sky and said with a solemn expression, "You Howren, you dared to kill my second brother, the White Tiger. I, the Blue Dragon Supreme, will capture everyone in your prince's mansion alive. Then, in front of you," just as the Blue Dragon Divine Dragon confirmed the owner of the roar, the voice of the Blue Dragon Supreme threatening Yu Haoren came from the sky above the Tianxian continent once again. Ancestor. The threatening voice of the Blue Dragon Supreme had already confirmed the death of the White Tiger Supreme. This caused countless clansmen of the White Tiger family to kneel on the ground with a pained expression as they started to shout loudly. Although the countless clansmen of the Blue Dragon family had the same sorrowful expression on their faces, they, who didn't really feel sad in their hearts, started to consider what kind of impact the death of the White Tiger Supreme would bring to their 4 great guardian families. Big brother, we are now going to charge towards the prince's mansion in the southern mountain range. We are going to kill everyone related to Yu Haoren and avenge our ancestor, the White Tiger Supreme. Just as the upper echelons of the Blue Dragon family were deep in thought, the White Tiger Divine Beast, who was the first to calm down from his sorrowful mood, spoke to the Blue Dragon Divine Beast while emitting an intense murderous aura. If your Blue Dragon family is willing to help us take revenge, then our White Tiger family will follow your Blue Dragon family's lead. If your Blue Dragon family wants to preserve your strength, we won't have any objections or complaints. We only hope that you can leave the White Tiger family's encampment immediately. Chapter 2060. In the White Tiger clan's residence. Faced with the White Tiger's blatant threat, the Blue Dragon, who was deep in thought, finally made the decision to work together after weighing the pros and cons. Second brother, the 4 great guardian clans are an inseparable unit. Avenging the White Tiger Supreme is not only a private matter of the White Tiger clan, but also the responsibility of the Blue Dragon clan, the Vermilion Bird clan, and the Black Tortoise clan. Big brother, thank you. Although Yu Haoren had only made his debut for a short period of less than 5 years, all the close friends he had made over the years were all monsters among monsters. Therefore, although the prince's mansion did not have a large number of people, it was not the slightest bit inferior to the Guardian clans. Since the failure of the mission to seize the ginseng fruit tree in Jinyuan's graveyard and the execution of the plan that their ancestors had been preparing for countless years, the Guardian clans had lost at least 2/3 of their top experts. This caused them, whose strength had fallen, to find it very difficult to attack the prince consort's residence with just the strength of a single family, let alone kill the close friends that Yu Haoren valued. Therefore, after hearing that the Blue Dragon Divine Beast was willing to join forces with the Vermilion Bird Clan and the Black Tortoise Clan to avenge the White Tiger Supreme, the White Tiger Divine Beast bowed his head in gratitude. The reason why the Blue Dragon Divine Beast agreed to the White Tiger Divine Beast's threat was also because of the same reason. In the star field of the boundless void, faced with the threat of the Blue Dragon Supreme, a terrifying cold light flashed in Yuhauran's eyes. He continued to overdraw his divine power and soul power. Then, with the help of the immortal slaying sword in his hand, he directly attacked the severely injured Vermilion Bird Supreme, who had been attacked by Su Hanwen. Bird cries in the ninth heaven, Phoenix Nirvana. If not for the fact that Su Hanwen wanted to capture her alive and had been controlling his strength, the Vermilion Bird Supreme would have been killed by him with his terrifying strength of an early stage 3 Tribulation Immortal Realm expert. But even so, the continuous injuries on her body made her strength drop to half Tribulation Immortal Realm. Originally, she was still hesitating whether or not she should give up on the opportunity in the immeasurable calamity and use the secret technique that would allow her to return to her birth state. Now, in the face of Yuhauran's immortal slaying swordplay, which was at the brink of death, Paragon Vermilion Bird immediately made the decision to use the secret technique. Following the Vermilion Bird Sovereign's cry, a red flame that even Su Hanwen couldn't approach started to burn rapidly within her body. As the red flames burned, a hexagonal star gradually appeared in the void of the star field. At the same time, an ordinary-looking little bird that was only a dozen centimeters tall slowly emerged from the body of the Vermilion Bird Sovereign. Then, with a 9-colored feather in its mouth, it rushed directly toward the 6-pointed star in the void above its head with a speed that was not inferior to teleportation. Paragon Vermilion Bird, are you trying to use the Phoenix Nirvana secret technique to escape? Aren't you looking down on me, the son of destiny? Yuhauran mocked the ordinary-looking little bird that was rushing toward the 6-pointed star in the void above its head. In fact, when Paragon Vermilion Bird Sovereign raised her head to the sky and cried, the records in the Destiny Stone Steel told him that she was trying to use the Phoenix Nirvana secret technique to escape. The Phoenix Nirvana secret technique had a total of 2 forms. In the first form, one would burn all the flesh, blood, and soul in the body in exchange for a strength that was 1,000 times or even 10,000 times greater than one's own to achieve the goal of destroying all enemies. With Paragon Vermilion Bird's cultivation base at the peak of 1 Tribulation Immortal Realm, using the first form of the Phoenix Nirvana secret technique would give her the strength of an early stage 3 Tribulation Immortal Realm expert. This made Su Hanwen nervous. In the second form, one would also burn all the flesh, blood, and soul in the body to condense an independent space that even the heavenly Tao couldn't discover. Then, the newly born Vermilion Bird chick would grow up in this independent space and transform into a new Paragon Vermilion Bird. However, Paragon Vermilion Bird seemed to have predicted that this would happen. She had actually refined a feather that could store her memories and comprehension of cultivation, as well as an enormous amount of pure fire attribute energy. If the newly born Vermilion Bird chick successfully escaped into the independent space, Paragon Vermilion Bird would return to the world in a few years or even a dozen years. Of course, with his current cultivation base and speed of advancement, he wasn't afraid of Paragon Vermilion Bird returning to the world. However, the 9-colored feather in the chick's mouth was something he had to obtain. If he could obtain the 9-colored feather, he could use karma to remove any connection between it and Paragon Vermilion Bird. Then, he could let Qin Lingfei absorb the cultivation comprehension and pure fire attribute energy in the 9-colored feather. Then, in at most half a month, Qin Lingfei would be able to directly break through to the martial god realm. Moreover, in the next 3 to 5 years, she would be able to directly break through to the supremacy realm. At the same time, in the memories of the Destiny Stone Steel, there was a method to easily kill a Vermilion Bird chick. That method was to use the Destiny Stone steel to control the vermilion bird chick, whose cultivation base had dropped to that of an ordinary creature. Therefore, as soon as Jiang Feng Ye's mocking voice sounded, the Fate Calamity Spirit Mouse in the heart space pressed its claws on the vermilion bird's name that had fallen to the bottom of the Destiny Stone steel and began to control its fate. When Paragon Vermilion Bird heard Yu Haoran mention the identity of the Child of Destiny, an ominous premonition arose in her heart as she burned her flesh, blood, essence, and soul. When the vermilion bird chick that was about to reach the six-pointed star started to tremble violently and the nine-colored feather in its mouth fell to the ground, she suddenly thought of the Destiny Stone steel and the Fate Calamity Spirit Mouse that could control fate. She immediately knew that her escape plan had completely failed. After losing the memories and cultivation techniques stored in it, as well as the nine-colored feather that contained a vast amount of pure energy, even if the vermilion bird chick successfully escaped into the independent space, it would ultimately die of old age in the independent space because it wouldn't be able to obtain any cultivation techniques or pure fire attribute energy. Therefore, Paragon Vermilion Bird instantly fell into a frenzy and roared towards the sky. "Yu Haoran, I'll fight you to the death." Paragon Vermilion Bird's roar reverberated through the clouds and immediately spread throughout the entire star field, the entire boundless void, and even the sky above the profound sky continent. After receiving news from the Blue Dragon and the White Tiger, the Vermilion Bird Divine Beast had just gathered all of the Vermilion Bird clan members at the Martial God Realm and above in preparation to head to the White Tiger clan's encampment to meet up with the Blue Dragon clan. But at this moment, the Vermilion Bird Divine Beast's roar suddenly rang out above the dense forest where the Vermilion Bird clan resided. Quickly go and search for the divine feather that Ancestor Nien left in the forbidden area." The Vermilion Bird Divine Beast's expression couldn't help but change when he heard the Vermilion Bird Divine Beast's furious and panicked roar. He immediately ordered the Vermilion Bird Clan Patriarch. Chapter 2061. In the Vermilion Bird Clan's residence. The Vermilion Bird muttered to itself in disbelief when it saw a dazzling red flame burning in the depths of the forest. Divine feather self-ignited, Ancestor fallen. Immediately after, the Vermilion Bird released a terrifying murderous aura that caused countless living beings in the central region to tremble in fear. The Vermilion Bird raised its head and roared at the sky. "Yu Haoran, since you dared to kill my Vermilion Bird Clan's ancestor, my Vermilion Bird Clan will destroy your prince consort's residence and slaughter all of your close friends and family." After roaring with murderous intent, the Vermilion Bird ordered its clansmen in the forest. "All clansmen above the Martial Saint realm, follow me to the mountain range where the White Tiger clan is located." Vermilion Bird Supreme, if you had used the first form of the Phoenix's nirvana from the start, not only would I, Yu Haoran, have fled, but even Senior Su wouldn't have been your match. Yu Haoran mocked indifferently when he saw the crazed Vermilion Bird Supreme turn into a sea of flames and charge at him. "You're about to fall from half-tribulation immortal realm, and you've already lost more than half of your body's essence and soul. What right do you have to fight me?" Just as Yu Haoran swung the immortal exterminating sword and was about to slay the crazed Vermilion Bird Paragon, Su Hanwan appeared beside him in a flash and pleaded with him. "Little friend Yu, let me do it." "Alright." Although Yu Haoran didn't know why Su Hanwan was so insistent on attacking the Vermilion Bird Paragon, Yu Haoran still had to give Su Hanwan face due to the fact that Su Hanwan had lent him a helping hand at a critical moment and had willingly stayed behind to help. Water Mist Crystallization. After obtaining Yu Haoran's approval, Su Hanwan gently waved the willow branch in his hand. 9 sparkling and translucent water droplets rapidly fused together to form a boundless ocean. Then, the ocean completely submerged the Vermilion Bird Sovereign's incarnation. It didn't take long, only about 5 or 6 seconds. As the seawater quickly gathered, it finally turned back into 9 crystal-clear water droplets. However, within each water droplet, there was a burning flame. Every burning flame was faintly emitting a trace of fire element origin energy. The moment Sovereign Vermilion Bird completely fell, Sovereign Blue Dragon, who was desperately rushing towards the planet where Xingtian's head was sealed, suddenly stopped, a look of sadness and unwillingness appearing in his eyes. Originally, with his Peak 2 Tribulation Immortal Realm Cultivation base and the assistance of White Tiger, Vermilion Bird, and Black Tortoise Supremes, he was fully capable of confronting Su Hanwen head-on and even severely injuring him. However, with the fall of White Tiger and Vermilion Bird Supreme, and Black Tortoise Supremes trapped, Sovereign Blue Dragon, who didn't have any helpers, had completely lost the means to confront Su Hanwen. If he continued to head towards the planet where Xingtian Supreme's head was sealed, with Yu Haoran's hatred towards him and Yu Haoran's vengeful personality, he would definitely be hunted down relentlessly. Yu Haoran, just you wait. When the resentment of the dead living beings of the profound sky continent is able to completely restrain the rules of the heavenly Tao, I, the Azure Dragon Sovereign, will definitely slaughter every single one of your close friends and family. I will make sure that you become completely alone before the immeasurable calamity begins. Putting away the sadness and unwillingness in his eyes, Sovereign Blue Dragon looked at the planet where Yu Haoran was and swore to himself with hatred in his eyes. Then, after calming down, Sovereign Blue Dragon turned around and rushed to the location where Xingtian Supreme's head was and protected his only remaining right-hand man with all his strength. No! However, at this moment, the entire star zone resounded with the miserable howl of Xingtian Supreme's head and the sorrowful roar of Xingtian Supreme's body. Immediately, Sovereign Blue Dragon mobilized all of his divine sense to scan the entire star zone. Immediately, he saw the giant head floating quietly in the void with its soul completely destroyed, Yu Haoran in a black robe, and the void spirit mouse standing on his shoulder. Although it was still a secret to most people that Yu Haoran had successfully cultivated the Qi-transforming 3 Pure Ones, Blue Dragon, who had a good relationship with Laozi, already knew about it. Therefore, when he saw Yu Haoran in a black robe, Sovereign Blue Dragon was not too surprised. He was only puzzled that they could appear in a position that even he and Xingtian's head could not accurately predict. Little friend, how did your doppelganger and the void spirit mouse manage to accurately intercept Xingtian's head? The miserable scream of Xingtian's head before its death and the sorrowful roar of Xingtian's body also alarmed Su Hanwen, who had just killed Sovereign Vermilion Bird. When he used his divine sense to scan the entire star zone and discovered the black-robed Yu Haoran and the void spirit mouse, as well as Xingtian's head whose soul had been destroyed, he also asked in confusion. Yu Haoran only smiled indifferently and did not answer, because this involved the power of the laws of time that only he, the void spirit mouse, knew about. In fact, when Su Hanwen used the willow leaf on the willow branch in his hand to hit Xingtian's soul between his eyebrows, he knew that the cowardly Xingtian's head would definitely act like the selfish headless body and escape on its own without caring about the lives of Sovereign White Tiger and the others. Furthermore, the strength of Xingtian's head that had been heavily injured had directly fallen to the early 9th grade martial god realm. Therefore, when Head Xing risked tearing through the void of the star zone to escape, he had the void spirit mouse use the power of the laws of time to return to the short river of history and search for the location where Xingtian's head last appeared in the void of the star zone. Then, he sent out his doppelganger, whose cultivation and strength had also reached the peak of the 9th grade martial god realm. He had the doppelganger carry the immortal culling sword and the void spirit mouse to ambush the location where Xingtian's head would appear. Finally, he used a sneak attack to successfully kill Xingtian's supreme soul. After losing his head and soul, Xingtian's body not only completely lost the hope of reaching the second tribulation immortal realm, but without the nourishment of a complete soul, the headless body would lose its vitality sooner or later. This also meant that Xingtian Supreme, who had once swept through the entire Middle Ages, had completely fallen. Originally, when the doppelganger wanted to use the formation that he had set up in advance to launch a sneak attack on Xingtian's body that was desperately rushing over, the doppelganger accidentally saw Sovereign Blue Dragon rushing over at the same speed. The doppelganger immediately recalled the Void Spirit Mouse into his sea of consciousness and used the method of instantly merging with the doppelganger to instantly return to Yu Haoran's sea of consciousness. Senior, let's have a chase. Chapter 2062. In the Endless Void, on the planet where Xingtian's head was sealed. No problem. After handing over the completely sealed Black Tortoise Prime to Yu Haoran, Su Hanwen nodded with a smile as he waved the willow branch in his hand. However, just as Yu Haoran was about to use the spatial law martial technique of teleportation to pursue the Blue Dragon Prime and the headless Xingtian Supreme's body, his mind suddenly received a message from his first clone. Senior, temporarily give up on the plan to pursue the Blue Dragon Prime and Xingtian's body. Immediately return to the prince's mansion at full speed. After cutting off the mental connection with his first clone, Yu Haoran immediately changed the plan of pursuit and instructed Su Hanwen. Young friend Yu, what happened? Su Hanwen hurriedly asked. Countless experts from the 4 guardian families are preparing to besiege the prince's mansion. After explaining the reason for his sudden return to the Tianxian continent, Yu Haoran had already used the spatial law martial technique of teleportation to set his target at the southern region of the Tianxian continent. Then, he desperately rushed to the Tianxian continent. A massacre has begun. Perhaps this is the real reason why young friend you had no choice but to activate the immeasurable calamity in advance. Hearing that countless experts from the 4 guardian families were preparing to besiege the prince's mansion, Su Hanwen's eyes flashed with a thoughtful look as he looked at Yu Haoran's back and muttered to himself. Then, he hurriedly put away his inner sigh and sped up to chase after Yu Haoran, who had left ahead of time. In the mountain range where the 100 Qi Gate was located, inside the prince's mansion, under Thaling's suggestion, the first clone temporarily replaced the identity of the main body and appeared in the courtyard of the mansion's front yard. Then, with Thaling's reminder and guidance, they began to arrange the defense and counterattack measures against the siege of the 4 guardian families. General Lan, General Han, General Lin, General Li, each of you will lead 100,000 elite soldiers from the north and station them in the 4 directions of the Sex mountain range. Then, use the battle formations in conjunction with the formations in the mountain range to kill all experts below Emperor Wu's realm from the 4 guardian families. Understood. Lan Rong, Han Guangbei, Li Quanqing, and Lin Yuanxiang, who had already reached the level of Emperor Wu, knelt down on one knee and accepted the order. They immediately led their troops to the east, west, south, and north of the 100 Qi Gate mountain range. Senior Shuesu, Junior Brother Jingjun, I'll have to trouble the 2 of you to guard the north of the mountain range. Do your best to kill all the experts above the martial god realm from the 4 guardian clans. After Lan Rong, Han Guangbei, and the others left the mansion, the first clone instructed the Blood Void Beast and Wu Jingjun. Yes. The Blood Void Beast and Wu Jingjun immediately rose into the air and hurried to the north of the mountain range. They then used their divine sense and the formations in the mountain range to control the entire area. Senior Long-Armed Ape, sister, please guard the east of the mountain range. Do your best to kill all the experts above the martial god realm from the 4 guardian clans. Yes. Understood. The long-armed ape and Yusiki rose into the air and hurried to the east of the mountain range. They used their divine sense and the formations in the mountain range to control the entire area. Senior Brother Qing Feng, Brother Qi, please guard the west of the mountain range. Do your best to kill all the experts above the martial god realm from the 4 guardian clans. Yes. Qing Feng and Palace immediately rose into the air and hurried to the west of the mountain range. They also used their divine sense and the formations in the mountain range to control the entire area. Senior Brother Lu, Please guard the south of the mountain range with Senior Xianyuan. Your mission is to kill all the experts above the martial god realm from the 4 guardian clans. Don't worry, junior brother Yu. Even if I die in battle, I won't let any of the martial god realm experts from the 4 guardian clans enter the mountain range. Lu Yuan took out his natal sword and Xianyuan's sword. After leaving behind his promise, he immediately rose into the air and hurried to the south of the mountain range. He also used his divine sense and the formations in the mountain range to control the entire area. He used his divine sense and the formations to control the north, south, east, and west of the entire mountain range. He completely blocked off any experts who wanted to attack or use special methods to sneak into the mountain range. This was what Yu Haoran and Thaling had considered in advance when they were setting up the formations in the mountain range. Ling Fei, Wuhan, you two are responsible for leading the people from the 100 Qi Gate. Cooperate with the attack formations in the mansion and be ready to support any side that is at a disadvantage. Don't worry, Prince Consort. Ling Fei is also responsible. We won't let anyone from the Guardian clans destroy our home, Qin Ling Fei promised with a solemn expression. After making arrangements for everyone in the prince's mansion, the first clone directly returned to the cultivation room in the backyard and told Thaling that he and Su Hanwen were speeding back to the endless void. First clone, ask Yu Haoran how long it will take for him and Su Hanwen to return to the Tianxian continent. Thaling quickly asked the first clone when he activated his divine sense that had returned to its peak state. He discovered that the 4 guardian clans had mobilized more than 500,000 experts above the martial saint realm and were already on their way to the south. After using telepathy to contact Yu Haoran again, the first avatar replied, "It'll take about 10 minutes. 10 minutes, that's a little long." When he used his divine sense to scan the entire troop of the 4 guardian clans, Thaling realized that he didn't know enough about the guardian clans. Or more accurately, the 4 guardian clans had concealed themselves too deeply. Under the strict surveillance of the Heavenly Way, the 4 guardian clans actually hid 1 expert who had just entered the half-tribulation immortal realm and 3 experts who were at the peak of the 9th grade sovereign realm. At the same time, there were more than 700 martial gods, half-tribulation supremes, and supreme supremes. With the current defensive strength of the prince's mansion, it would be difficult for it to hold on for more than 10 minutes under the siege of so many experts. Moreover, Thaling was also worried that some top forces and experts with ulterior motives might take the opportunity to cause trouble. Thaling, the main body wanted me to tell you that, if we can't resist the siege of the Guardian clans in the end, we can temporarily abandon the defense of the mountain range and have everyone retreat to the prince's mansion. Then, we can use the defense of the mansion's formation to hold on until he and Senior Su return. After secretly telling the main body about Thaling's lack of confidence, Yu Haoran made the decision to completely abandon the mountain range and the sect's encampment after a short period of careful consideration. If they could shrink the defense area and use the defense of the prince's mansion, which was not inferior to a supreme defensive artifact, they could easily hold on for more than 10 minutes even if the number of experts from the Guardian clans doubled. Chapter 2063. More than 500,000 experts of the martial saint realm and above gathered together, emitting a monstrous aura that did not lose out to a peak second tribulation immortal realm expert. This immediately alarmed countless forces and experts in the Tianxian continent. When countless forces and experts discovered the source of the terrifying aura, which turned out to be the 4 great guardian families that had secretly ruled the Tianxian continent for countless years, the ordinary forces and experts below the martial saint realm all withdrew their gazes. When the remaining top forces and experts realized that the murderous 4 great guardian clans were heading straight for the southern region prince consort's residence, some who had a deep grudge against Yu Haoran, some who wanted to take advantage of the situation, and some who wanted to take advantage of the situation all followed behind the guardian clans. As a result, the number of people heading for the southern region prince consort's residence exceeded a terrifying 1 million. A battle between 1 million experts of the Martial Saint realm and above. This was probably the first large-scale battle since the destruction of the ancient times. Sunset Island, Zhongli family's meeting hall. With the Heavenly Ways rules allowing the supreme martial artists from the 1st grade to the pinnacle of 8th grade to return to the Tianxian continent, the Zhongli clan, as the head of the 5 great hidden clans, had as many as 7 grandmasters from the pinnacle of 8th grade martial artists, and as many as 29 grandmasters from the 1st grade to the 7th grade martial artists. Although the return of the 37 ancestors of the Martial Saint realm allowed the Zhongli family's strength to return to its peak, it also caused the remaining ancestors, Zhongli Mingjing and Zhongli Qingyang, to completely lose their right to speak in the family. When more than 500,000 experts of the Martial Saint realm and above from the 4 great guardian families were rushing toward the southern region prince's mansion with murderous aura, the Zhongli family immediately called for an emergency meeting. There was only one topic in the meeting, which was to help the 4 great guardian families kill everyone in the prince's mansion. At this moment, the only thing that was debated was the number of experts that the Zhongli family needed to send. One side believed that Yu Haoran, who had only debuted for a few years, couldn't have accumulated a deep foundation. The 4 great guardian families had more than 500,000 experts of the Martial Saint realm and above, and they could easily kill everyone in the prince's mansion. Therefore, they only needed to send out 2 or 3 Supreme Being experts to express their stance and show that the Zhongli clan was standing on the side of the protector clans. The other faction believed that they should send out all of their Supreme Being experts. That way, they would be able to display the strength of the Zhongli clan, and they would be able to legitimately seize the prince's mansion, which was capable of condensing innate spiritual energy. As for Zhongli Mingjing and Zhongli Qingyang, who sat in the corner of the hall, they didn't even have the right to express their surprise or opinion. Ancestor Mingjing, what should we do next? Looking at the dozens of honorable ancestors who were arguing with each other, Zhongli Qingyang secretly used his divine sense to discuss with Zhongli Mingjing. What else can we do? Once the meeting is over, immediately use the secret treasure to contact Shui Qin and inform her of the Zhongli clan's current situation, the situation we're facing, and the venerable ancestors' plan. Zhongli Mingjing looked indifferently at those paragon old ancestors who didn't care about the fate of their clans and only cared about the petty profits before them. He was disappointed and also used his divine sense to give an order. Ancestor Mingjing, don't tell me you have so much confidence in Yu Haoran. Secretly informing his daughter of the ancestors' plan was equivalent to directly informing Yu Haoran. In fact, this wasn't much different from directly betraying the clan, so Zhongli Qingyang couldn't help but hesitate. After all, he was worried that if the prince's mansion was destroyed by the guardian clans, the ancestor would discover that they had secretly leaked the secret. After that, not only would he lose his position and authority as the patriarch of the clan, but he would also lose his immortal life that he had obtained with great difficulty. Qingyang, you haven't directly fought with Yu Haoran, so you don't know how terrifying and powerful the Fate Calamity Spirit Mouse and the Destiny Stone Steel are when it comes to controlling fate. Sensing the hesitation in Zhongli Qingyang's heart, Zhongli Mingjing decided to reveal the reason why he chose to believe in Yu Haoran. Trust me, if any of these honorable ancestors dares to enter the prince's mansion in the southern region, they will definitely die there. Alright. Compared to the honorable ancestors in front of him who he had never interacted with before, Zhongli Qingyang was more willing to believe in Zhongli Mingjing. Therefore, after a short period of consideration, Zhongli Qingyang finally decided to listen to his instructions and began to secretly record the honorable ancestors' plan. After nearly 5 minutes of intense argument, and when the Guardian clan's experts entered the southern region, the 37 honorable ancestors finally formed a united front and mobilized all of their forces to fight for the prince's mansion. Since they had already formed a united front, the 37 honorable ancestors didn't hesitate in the slightest. They all tore through the void and hurried to the southern region. As for Zhongli Mingjing and Zhongli Qingyang, the 37 honorable ancestors didn't ask for their opinion, nor did they have any intention of bringing them along to divide the prince's mansion. Central region, gloomy lake mountain range. As the Emperor Qin's face was ashen as he looked at a handsome middle-aged man with an outstanding temperament, but a sinister smile hung at the corner of his mouth. This handsome man with a sinister smile was the temporary manifestation of Honorable Mental Demon Yu Luoran's remnant soul. Ignoring Emperor Qin's ashen face, Honorable Mental Demon Yu Luoran's remnant soul mocked, "Your Majesty, it's not that I'm trying to stop you from assisting the prince's mansion, but with Emperor Wu's cultivation at the peak of the 9th grade, not only will he not be of any help, he might even implicate your son-in-law. Honorable Demon Lord, even if I die in battle as cannon fodder, I will definitely not be a coward when my son-in-law is in danger." Similarly, ignoring Honorable Mental Demon Yu Luoran's remnant soul's mocking, Emperor Qin firmly expressed his attitude of wanting to interfere. "Your Majesty, if you want to help your son-in-law, or perhaps provide him with the most powerful support, you don't need to go to the southern region's prince's mansion." Emperor Qin's unyielding attitude caused Honorable Mental Demon Yu Luoran's remnant soul to flash with a trace of dissatisfaction, but he still reminded with a sinister smile on his face. "What method?" Emperor Qin hurriedly asked. Although the relationship between Emperor Qin and Yu Haoran made Honorable Mental Demon Yu Luoran's remnant soul very envious and jealous, whether or not Emperor Qin could successfully advance to the immortal martial god realm in a short period of time was related to whether or not his remnant soul could be reborn. Therefore, Honorable Mental Demon Yu Luoran's remnant soul didn't continue to keep him in suspense. Chapter 2064. In the Dark Lake Mountain Range. Good idea. Emperor Qin's reputation would be tarnished if he slaughtered the old, weak, sick, and disabled and captured orphans and widows. It might even affect his future campaign in the central region. However, as long as he could help his most valued son-in-law, Yu Haoran, Emperor Qin would not hesitate even if he had to bear all the bad reputation in the world. Seeing Emperor Qin's agreement without hesitation, Yu Luoran's remnant soul returned to the sea of consciousness, and a sinister smile flashed in her eyes. When more than 500,000 experts from the 4 great guardian families set foot in the southern region, the higher-ups of the ancient Monster Clan, the ancient Nether Clan, and the ancient Divine Demon Clan made the decision whether to join the war or not. Among them, the ancient Monster Clan and the ancient Divine Clan chose to watch from the sidelines, while the ancient Nether Clan and the ancient Demon Clan chose to join the war. Their target was the prince's mansion represented by Yu Haoran. As for Mo Hao, the ancient Demon Clan's prince, he only knew about it when the ancient Demon Clan's army set out. He was terrified and lost his mind completely. After all, the reason why Yu Haoran chose to forgive the ancient Demon Clan's offense was because Mo Hao, the Demon Clan's prince, had sworn an oath on his inner demon and martial Tao. Now that the ancient Demon Clan had broken the oath, the first to be punished would be Mo Hao. A bunch of shameless old fellows. Since you dare to ignore the existence of this devil son, don't blame this devil son for burying the entire ancient devil clan with me. After roaring in his heart, Mo Hao used his divine thought to summon a prince at the early stage of the immortal realm, 9 dukes at the sovereign realm, 18 marquises at the martial god realm, 36 earls at the Emperor Wu realm, 72 viscounts at the martial venerable realm, and 144 barons at the martial saint realm. However, no matter if it was the prince or the barons at the martial saint realm, they only looked at Mo Hao with fanatical admiration. Burn all of your divine power and divine soul immediately. Then, use the formation flags in your hands to set up the peak sovereign realm infinite destruction formation for me. Yes. Faced with the fate of burning their divine power and souls, the 280 demon race experts did not hesitate or resist. Instead, they carried out their orders with fanatical expressions. If the supreme masters of the ancient demon clan saw this, they would immediately strip Mo Hao of his identity as the demon son of Mo Hao. Then, he would be punished by having his soul burned by the demon fire for 49 days before he was allowed to be executed. This was because the method that Mo Hao was using to control those devil clan experts was the #1 taboo secret technique, the soul-snatching technique, which was forbidden by the ancient devil clan. Soul-absorbing and soul-seizing art was created by a genius prince of the ancient demon clan, a top genius whose talent and potential were not inferior to that of the devils. Based on the enchanted beast, it was a secret art that could control minds. Those who were controlled by the soul-devouring technique usually behaved normally. Even half-tribulation, immortal realm experts couldn't find anything unusual. However, as long as the person who used the soul-stealing technique activated the secret technique, these people who had their minds controlled would immediately become obedient puppets. More importantly, soul-absorbing and soul-seizing art didn't have any cultivation base restriction. Even a martial ancestor realm expert could use the secret technique to control a half-tribulation immortal realm expert. In the past, the genius who created the soul-absorbing and soul-seizing art almost overturned the demon emperor's hundreds of millions of years of rule and completely changed the history of the ancient demon clan. Therefore, since then, the demon emperor not only listed soul-absorbing and soul-seizing art as the #1 taboo secret technique of the ancient demon clan, but also personally killed all the demon race experts who had cultivated it. However, all living creatures had selfish motives. Facing such a powerful taboo secret technique, the demon emperor didn't burn it all. Instead, he secretly kept the complete soul-absorbing and soul-seizing art created by that genius. Then, he used this taboo secret technique to control those geniuses with monstrous talents and potential. As the descendant of the demon emperor's direct bloodline, the demon son Mo Hao had taken the risk to sneak into the Forbidden Land where the demon emperor was sleeping. Then, he used a special poison and secret treasure to secretly open the independent space created by the demon emperor. He obtained the soul-absorbing and soul-seizing art's taboo secret technique and a few heaven-defying treasures. This time, when his mind had completely sunk into madness, he planned to use the soul-absorbing and a few heaven-defying treasures to completely destroy the foundation and hope of the ancient demon clan. He would also let those imperial preceptors and princes who ignored him know the consequences of offending him. In the endless void, Yu Haoran, who was desperately rushing to the Tianxian continent, asked the Fate Calamity Spirit Mouse, who was trying to use the Destiny Steel to control the fate of living creatures in his heart space. "Brother He, how is it?" The reason why he was so anxious was because his first clone had used the mind connection to tell him that not only had the 4 guardian families gathered more than 500,000 experts in the Martial Saint realm and above to besiege the prince's mansion, countless top forces and experts in the Tianxian continent had also joined the 4 guardian families. The Zhongli family's 37 supreme ancestors and more than 100,000 experts in the Martial Saint realm and above from the ancient Nether tribe and the ancient demon clan had joined the 4 guardian families. Due to the time limit of his debut, the foundation that the prince's mansion had desperately accumulated over the years, even with the large number of formations set up by Thaling and his second clone in the mountain range, was barely enough to resist the attack of the 4 guardian families. Now, facing more than 1 million experts in the Martial Saint realm and above, especially those in the Martial Saint realm and half-tribulation immortal realm, Thaling and the others might not even be able to hold on for 10 seconds. At the same time, due to the great distance between the Endless Void and the Tianxian continent, he would need at least 5 minutes to successfully return even if he performed the space rule martial skill with all his strength. 5 minutes. By the time he returned to the Tianxian continent in 5 minutes, he would probably only see a scene of ruins. Therefore, he could only rely on the life calamity spirit rat that could control fate to counterattack. After all, the law of destiny contained in the Destiny Stone tablet not only allowed the life calamity spirit rat to not encounter any bottlenecks during its cultivation, but it also did not have to endure the god's tribulation lightning punishment for breaking through to the martial god realm and the supreme tribulation lightning punishment for breaking through to the martial saint realm. At the same time, with the large amount of Sciention crystals provided by the blood void beast, as well as the formation that he had personally set up in his heart to convert chaotic spiritual energy, not only did the doomed spirit rat successfully advance to the supreme martial artist realm, it even reached the pinnacle of the 7th grade martial artist realm. If the life calamity spirit rat could control the fate of more than 1 million experts in the martial saint realm and above with the Destiny Stone tablet, then Thaling and the others would be able to hold on until he and Su Hanwen returned. Chapter 2065. In the Boundless Void. Master No. After sensing and controlling the fates of the Sovereign, Martial God, Emperor Wu, Martial Exalt, and Martial Saint Realm experts through the Destiny Steel, the Spirit Mouse replied to Yu Haoran with a dejected expression. The atmosphere between the profound sky continent and the boundless void has the effect of isolating the Destiny Steel and the aura of the fates of living beings. With my current cultivation and strength, I am temporarily unable to break through the seal and control the fates of the 4 protector families. After hearing the Spirit Mouse reply, Yu Haoran could not help but feel his heart sink. Without the Spirit Mouse help in controlling fate, Thaling and Ling Fei would not be able to withstand the combined attacks of over 1 million experts. Unless he could advance the mysteries of the laws of space to the laws of space in the shortest amount of time possible, allowing him to move 10 million kilometers in a single step. The laws of space. When he considered the effects of the laws of space on speed, allowing him to return to the profound sky continent in the blink of an eye, Yu Haoran suddenly thought of the crystal containing the laws of space that the Spirit Mouse had obtained from the planet where Xingtian's head was sealed. With the trace of the pure origin of the laws of space contained within the crystal, it would definitely be able to assist him in breaking through the shackles of the laws of space in the shortest amount of time possible, allowing him to truly surpass the limits of speed. Although there was a certain amount of risk in absorbing the energy of the crystal since he had yet to advance his comprehension of the laws of space, in order to return to the profound sky continent as soon as possible and save his family and friends, he would not hesitate to risk his life even if it meant a slim chance of survival. First, he used telepathy to inform Thaling that he had found a way to return to the profound sky continent as soon as possible. At the same time, he told him to do his best to protect everyone in the prince's mansion. Next, he had his second clone leave his sea of consciousness before asking Su Hanwen to take his second clone to the profound sky continent. Finally, he took the Spirit Mouse into his second clone's sea of consciousness and used the crystal containing the laws of space to raise his comprehension of the laws of space as quickly as possible. After that, he would completely retaliate against the 4 protector families, the primordial underworld clan, the primordial demon clan, and the Zhongli clan. In front of the mountain where the 100 Qi Gate was located, second brother, third sister, fourth brother. After leading over 500,000 martial sages from the 4 guardian families to the mountain range where the prince's son-in-law manor was, the Azure Dragon Divine Beast turned its head to warn the White Tiger Divine Beast, the Vermilion Bird Divine Beast, and the Black Tortoise Divine Beast after sensing the intense killing intent in the mountain range. Yu Haoran is not only treacherous and cunning, but also very crafty. Although he's still far away in the endless void and can't come back in time, I'm worried that he has the means to remotely contact the prince's mansion. Based on the current situation, he might be able to set up a trap that can easily deceive us or find a loophole to break out of the encirclement. Therefore, we have to block all the routes of escape for Yuhauran's family and friends before we launch the attack. Big brother, what do you want to do? The Supreme White Tiger, who was eager to take revenge, hurriedly asked. Attack separately, surround and destroy. The Blue Dragon Divine Beast instructed after having quickly scanned the mountain range with his powerful divine sense, and then based on the area and position of the mountain range. Second brother, you will lead all the experts of the White Tiger family and attack from the east of the mountain range. Don't let anyone from the Prince's Mansion and the 100 Chi Gate escape. Yes, big brother. The White Tiger Divine Beast replied excitedly. Third sister, you will lead all the experts of the Vermilion Bird family and attack from the west of the mountain range. Similarly, don't let anyone from the Prince's Mansion and the 100 Chi Gate escape. Yes, big brother. The Vermilion Bird Divine Beast replied with gritted teeth. Fourth brother, you will lead all the experts of the Black Tortoise family and guard the south of the mountain range. Don't let anyone from the Prince's Mansion and the 100 Chi Gate escape. Don't let them betray the family like Xian Su did. While instructing the Black Tortoise to guard the south of the mountain range, the Blue Dragon Divine Beast suddenly thought of the Black Tortoise that had secretly defected to Yuhauran. Big brother, if it weren't for you, second brother, and third sister's pleas, I would have slapped that traitor to death long ago. How could I tolerate the punishment of being imprisoned for 10,000 years? The Black Tortoise said with a murderous look when it heard the Blue Dragon Divine Beast mention the traitor of the family. Fourth brother, it has always been difficult to pass down the pure bloodline of the four divine beasts. It is the wish of our ancestors to be able to preserve a portion of the pure bloodline. The Blue Dragon Divine Beast could understand the Black Tortoise's anger, so he sighed and advised. After that, the Azure Dragon Divine Beast rose into the air and looked at the 700,000 experts before him. Even the weakest among them was a martial sage. He reminded them with a calm expression. This time, the reason why we four guardian families attacked Yuhauran's Prince's Mansion is mainly to take revenge for our ancestors, the White Tiger Divine Beast and the Vermilion Bird Divine Beast. As for the reason why you have come with us, I can basically guess. Either Yuhauran has an irreconcilable hatred for him, or you have taken a fancy to the enormous wealth accumulated in the Prince's Mansion, or you want to eliminate a threat to yourself, or you want to take advantage of the situation. At this point, the Blue Dragon Divine Beast's indifferent expression was instantly replaced by a fierce one. His tone was filled with murderous intent as he warned. However, I don't care what kind of motives you have. The premise is that you can't disrupt or affect the revenge of our four guardian families. Otherwise, don't blame our four guardian families for being ruthless. Therefore, whether you choose to attack freely or follow behind us and assist in the attack, it's all up to you. After warning the many forces and experts present, the Blue Dragon Divine Beast landed on the flat ground in front of the mountain range again. Then, he nodded to the White Tiger Divine Beast, the Vermilion Bird Divine Beast, and the Black Tortoise Divine Beast. Everyone, return to your positions and wait for my signal. After nodding in response, the White Tiger Divine Beast, the Vermilion Bird Divine Beast, and the Black Tortoise Divine Beast led the experts of their respective clans and headed in 3 different directions of the mountain range. The ancient underworld clan's army of 100,000, under the leadership of a peak 9th grade supreme martial artist, chose to assist the White Tiger clan in their attack on the east side of the mountain range. The ancient demon clan's army of 100,000, under the leadership of a peak 9th grade supreme martial artist, also chose to assist the Vermilion Bird clan in their attack on the west side of the mountain range. The Flowing Cloud sect's 7 Supreme Being experts and 19 Martial God Realm experts, under the leadership of a peak 7th grade Supreme Martial Artist, chose to assist the Black Tortoise clan in their attack on the south side of the mountain range. As for the Zhongli clan's 37 Supreme Being experts, They stayed where they were to assist the Blue Dragon clan in their attack on the north side of the mountain range, which was also the direction where the prince's mansion's attack and defense were the strongest. They wanted to prove the strength of their Zhongli clan. Chapter 2066. In front of the mountain where the 100 Chi Gate was located. Roar! When all the experts were in position, the Blue Dragon Divine Beast roared to the sky and roared with the purest dragon roar. Kill! Accompanied by the roar of the Azure Dragon Divine Beast, which contained a strong murderous aura, more than 1,000,000 experts of the martial sage realm and above charged into the mountain at the same time. In the originally silent mountain range, along with the tragic roars, countless white mists quickly emerged. Along with the white mist, there were countless sounds of weapons and martial techniques colliding, as well as the miserable cries of countless experts before they died. Although the formation set up by Thaling and his second clone was powerful, it was limited by the cultivation and strength of the experts in the prince's mansion, as well as the number and strength of the enemies. In the end, the formation could only exert less than 30% of its power, which led to the loss of the 100,000 elite soldiers in the north. Fortunately, the pagoda spirit had already predicted that the 100,000 elite soldiers from the northern army would be the weakest point of the defensive formation. It used the space-time energy of its main body's space-time domain tower to rescue those heavily injured elite soldiers in time. In the end, the number of casualties in the north was less than 300. However, the loss of less than 300 men had taken the lives of nearly 30,000 strong enemies. As for the Blood Void Beast and Usiki who were guarding the mountain range, they relied on the mountain range formation and a large amount of divine veins and spiritual milk to resist the attacks of 4 divine beasts who had just reached the half-tribulation immortal realm, almost 200 supremes, and more than 1,000 martial gods. However, Thaling knew that the Blood Void Beast and Usiki wouldn't be able to hold on for long. Since they had limited divine veins and spiritual milk, the formation could only withstand a limited number of fierce attacks. Therefore, Thaling used the Yuan Killer Sword to sneak attack the martial gods and Emperor Wu experts while calculating the time it would take for them to return to the prince's mansion. 20 seconds, 40 seconds, 1 minute and 10 seconds. The pagoda spirit, who had just used the primordial massacre sword to kill 2 martial gods and 7 martial grand emperors, discovered that Wu Jingjun and the Scarlet Loath, who had the lowest cultivation base, were injured by the opponent's attack and were vomiting blood. It knew that it was time to temporarily abandon the mountain range and defend the prince consort's mansion. Thaling used his divine sense to inform the 30,000 elite soldiers in the north to return to the prince's mansion as soon as possible. Then, he quickly returned to his original body and completely transformed into the Time and Space Victor's original body. It was a giant tower that was more than 1,000,000 kilometers tall. Afterwards, he controlled the space-time domain tower that had returned to its original appearance and slammed into the countless experts of the Azure Dragon clan and Zhongli clan. At the same time, he used his soul to contact the Blood Void Beast, Usiki, and the others to return to their residences immediately. Boom! With a deafening boom, at least 50,000 martial gods, Emperor Wu, martial sovereigns and martial saints from the Blue Dragon family, Zhongli family, and countless other forces that were attacking the north of the mountain range were crushed, killed, sent flying, or injured by the Time and Space Victor. While the Blue Dragon family and Zhongli family were panicking, Thaling immediately controlled his Time and Space Victor to crash into the White Tiger family and the primordial underworld tribe in the east. At the same time, the Blood Void Beast and Wu Jingjun, who were guarding the north of the mountain range, took the opportunity to return to the prince's mansion. Stay back for now. As one of the 7 innate treasures born from the chaos, the Time and Space Victor's reputation was no less than the Bell of Chaos. Especially for the top experts, Not only did they know that the time and space victor contained part of the energy of time and space, but they also knew that the time and space victor's defense was no less inferior to the Bell of Chaos and the Hautian Seal. Therefore, in the face of the time and space victor, the White Tiger divine beast of the White Tiger family and the primordial underworld tribe's peak 9th grade supreme martial artist immediately ordered their experts to retreat and temporarily avoid the time and space victor. Using this opportunity, Long-Armed Ape and Yusiki, who were guarding the east of the mountain range, took the opportunity to return to the prince's mansion. Seeing that Long-Armed Ape and Yusiki had successfully returned to the prince's mansion, Thaling immediately controlled the time and space victor to blast towards the south of the mountain range. The experts of the Black Tortoise family and the Flowing Cloud sect also chose to retreat, and Lu Yuan and Xian Yuan Weapon Spirit also took the opportunity to return to the prince's mansion. As for the Vermilion Bird family and the Primordial Demon clan, who were in charge of attacking the west of the mountain range, they did not wait for the time and space victor to rush over, so they took the initiative to weaken the attack and allowed Qing Feng and Palace to return safely to the prince's mansion. In fact, with the 4 guardian families, the Primordial Underworld tribe, the Primordial Demon clan, the Zhongli family, and the Flowing Cloud sect, it was not that they did not have the strength and means to deal with the time and space victor, but they would have to pay a very heavy price. At the same time, they also found out that the reason the time and space victor attacked was only to let the Blood Void Beast and Yusiki safely return to the prince's mansion, and not to break out of the encirclement and escape. Therefore, they temporarily avoided the time and space victor's edge, and planned to completely slaughter everyone in the prince's mansion before preparing their strongest means to deal with the time and space victor. First Doppelganger, how is you Howren? Thaling, who had quickly returned to the prince's mansion, asked anxiously. Although the prince's mansion's defensive formation was far more powerful than the one in the mountain range, it would have to withstand more attacks than the one in the mountain range. Similarly, it would not be able to hold on for too long. Therefore, Thaling now needed to know the specific time Yu Haoren would return to the Tianxian continent. The original body took the initiative to cut off the telepathic means, so I can't contact him for the time being. Through the formation space of the prince's mansion, the first doppelganger looked at the millions of experts who were quickly besieging them and replied with a serious expression. Sigh. After hearing the first doppelganger's reply, Thaling could not help but sigh softly. After that, he distributed all the spiritual veins, divine veins, pills, and spiritual elixirs in the victor, and then ordered everyone in the prince's mansion to do their best to provide energy to the formation of the mansion. Thaling, if the original body is still unable to return in time when the mansion is breached, please use the time and space victor to take Qin Lingfei and the sword without trace and leave this place. He then used the telepathic means to contact the original body again, but the result was still no response. This caused the first doppelganger to completely give up on the extravagant hope of turning defeat into victory. Considering the deep feelings between the original body and everyone in the prince's mansion, if he saw that the prince's mansion was completely destroyed and everyone was massacred, he would definitely fall into an uncontrollable madness. At that time, only Qin Lingfei and the sword without trace, who had a deeper relationship with each other, would have the possibility of him regaining his composure. I understand. Thaling replied with a solemn expression as he nodded. At all costs, use all your strength to break the defense of the prince's mansion. The divine beast Blue Dragon, who had rushed to the front of the prince's mansion, ordered the millions of experts excitedly. Boom! Chapter 2067. In the Endless Void, in the Sea of Consciousness of the Second Doppelganger. Sizzle! Looking at the Space Rules energy crystal that was as large as a mountain, even Yu Haoren, who had already reached the peak of a 7th grade supreme martial artist, couldn't help but gasp. At the same time, he suddenly thought of the Blood Void Beast, who urgently needed the Space Rules energy to recover, and could not help but ask, Lil Kong, if this space rules energy crystal is given to the blood void beast to absorb, what realm will it reach in the end? I don't know. The empty spirit mouse shook its head and replied. In response, Yu Haoran did not continue to ask. At the same time, he immediately dispelled the miscellaneous thoughts in his mind and reached out to press on the space rules energy crystal. Puff, puff, puff. As a trace of energy in the space rules energy crystal was quickly guided into the sea of consciousness, a space storm appeared out of nowhere and began to forcibly destroy and cut the sea of consciousness. This caused blood blisters to burst out on Yu Haoran's forehead and head one after another. Seeing the blood blisters on Yu Haoran's forehead and head, the empty spirit mouse knew that it was the backlash of the space rules energy and intended to forcibly knock away his hands that were pressing on the space rules energy crystal. However, at this moment, Yu Haoran, who suddenly opened his eyes, stopped the empty spirit mouse with a ferocious look. Lil Kong, don't move. I can hold on. Yu Haoran, the divine soul in the sea of consciousness, is too weak. If it is injured by the space rules energy, even if you return to the Tianxian continent in time, how can you deal with the experts at the peak of the 9th grade sovereign realm and the half-tribulation, immortal realm of the 4 great guardian families? Although the empty spirit mouse had stopped knocking away Yu Haoran's hands that were pressing on the space rules energy crystal, it still did not give up on persuading him to stop taking risks. Lil Kong, don't worry. Yu Haoran tried to calm his ferocious look and said confidently, as long as the mystery of the space rules can be successfully promoted to rules, I will have a way to quickly recover my peak cultivation and strength. Alas! Seeing Yu Haoran's resolute attitude, the void spirit mouse sighed and didn't continue to persuade him. After closing his eyes again, Yu Haoran immediately mobilized all of his consciousness into his soul. Then, he began to approach and absorb the energy of the spatial storm. Although his soul would be sliced by the spatial storms hundreds of thousands of times every second, making him suffer unimaginable pain, it was this unimaginable torment that allowed his perception of spatial storms and his comprehension of the laws of space to advance by leaps and bounds. 1 minute later, his comprehension of the profound mysteries of the laws of space had reached the pinnacle. 2 minutes later, he vaguely caught a glimpse of a breakthrough in the rules of space. 4 minutes later, Yu Haoran, who had successfully merged into the spatial storm, exuded an ethereal aura that seemed to be both real and fake, static and moving at the same time. Success! When it sensed the ethereal aura that suddenly emerged from Yu Haoran's body, the void spirit mouse, who had gradually unlocked its inherited bloodline memories, immediately knew that the mysteries of the laws of space had been successfully promoted to rules. Although the mysteries of the laws of space had been successfully promoted to rules, Yu Haoran didn't immediately stop cultivating. Instead, he used his mind to take out 9 divine pills that had reached the 9th rank of the first step, but were of completely different quality. As he abruptly opened his eyes, Yu Haoran's 10 fingers rapidly formed the imprint of the pill condensation technique. Then, he directly fused the imprint that he had formed into the 9 divine pills. As the imprint quickly fused into the 9 divine pills, strands of pill essence gradually emerged from the insides of the 9 divine pills. Then, the pill essence rapidly condensed into a cloud of mist. 9 pill essence condensation, divine pills to saint grade. When the 9 divine pills had completely lost their pill essence and turned into white powder that floated in the space of his sea of consciousness, Yu Haoran fused the last imprint that he had formed into the mist of pill essence. Then, he roared at the top of his lungs. Accompanied by Yu Haoran's hoarse roar, the mist condensed from the essence of the pill began to shrink rapidly. In the end, it turned into a pill the size of a longan. It was crystal clear and exuded a unique aura. This is a healing saint-grade pill that surpasses the first rank. Looking at the pill that was floating in the space of his sea of consciousness and exuding a unique aura, the void spirit mouse cried out in shock again. After all, Being able to refine a saint-grade pill that surpassed the divine grade meant that Yu Haoran's alchemy cultivation had successfully advanced to the alchemy supremacy level. That's right, it's a first-rank saint-grade pill that surpasses the divine grade. As he nodded to confirm, Yu Haoran stretched out his hand to summon the saint-grade pill back and directly put it into his mouth. Immediately afterward, the damage caused by the spatial storm condensed by the spatial rules that destroyed and tore the space of his sea of consciousness recovered at an unimaginable speed. Subsequently, Yu Haoran did not explain his advancement in alchemy cultivation. Instead, he directly waved his hand to put away the spatial rules energy crystal, and then stepped out of the space of his second clone's sea of consciousness. "Senior, sorry to trouble you." After motioning his second clone to return to his sea of consciousness, Yu Haoran cupped his hands and thanked Su Hanwen. "Little friend Yu, you're welcome. This is what I should do." While also cupping his hands to indicate that Yu Haoran did not need to be polite, Su Hanwen's heart was filled with shock. At this moment, although Yu Haoran's cultivation did not change at all, the ethereal aura that emanated from his body, as well as the feeling that he could never get close to Yu Haoran, let him know that Yu Haoran's strength had undergone an earth-shaking change in just a few minutes. At this moment, with his cultivation at the early stage of the immortal grade 3 tribulation, although he had the strength to defeat Yu Haoran, he no longer had the confidence to kill Yu Haoran. "Senior Su, as my space law occult has just advanced to the level of rules, I'm still not very familiar with the use of the spatial rules. For the time being, I don't have the ability to bring you back to the Tianxian continent, so..." Yu Haoran apologetically explained to Su Hanwen while using the method of telepathy to contact his first clone. After directly interrupting Yu Haoran's apologetic explanation, Su Hanwen comforted him with a smile. "Little friend Yu, in at most 5 minutes, I can return to the Tianxian continent smoothly and appear in the prince's mansion in the southern region. So you don't have to consider my feelings at all. Just return to the Tianxian continent as soon as possible." Oh no! The moment Yu Haoran contacted his first clone with telepathy, he immediately felt the depression and despair that emerged from his first clone's heart. He immediately knew that the prince's mansion was in danger. "Senior Su, I'll take my leave first." Therefore, after cupping his hands and bidding farewell to Su Hanwen, he directly mobilized the energy of the spatial rules and rushed to the distant Tianxian continent. Second step. Chapter 2068. In the mountains where the 100 Qi Gate was located, in front of the prince's mansion. Since the construction of the prince's mansion was completed, Thaling and his second doppelganger would often add all kinds of offensive and defensive formations when they were free. This made the whole mansion possess a strong offensive power that was not inferior to that of an expert at the early stage of the immortal realm. It also made the whole mansion possess a defensive power that was not inferior to that of a supreme-grade defensive celestial artifact. However, in the face of the siege of more than 1 million experts at the martial sage realm, although the mansion's powerful offensive power had directly killed more than 300,000 experts at the martial sage realm, its weakness of not being able to surpass the limitation of a supreme-grade defensive celestial artifact still caused the people in the prince's mansion to be in danger of being slaughtered. The first doppelganger, with his hands behind his back, raised his head and looked at the mansion that had been destroyed by 2/3, the elite soldiers of the North Road, and more than half of the disciples of the 100 Qi Gate. The first doppelganger couldn't help but sigh softly. He waved his hand at Thaling, who was still trying his best to control the mansion's formation. "Thaling, get ready to break out of the encirclement." After Thaling quickly appeared beside him, the first doppelganger ordered with a painful look in his eyes. "Until now, we still can't contact Yu Haoran?" Thaling, whose aura was low and his divine soul was a little weak, asked anxiously. In fact, the reason why the prince's mansion could hold on for so long was mainly because of the mansion's offensive and defensive formations. However, this also caused Thaling, who was in charge of controlling the formation, to directly bear the terrifying power of the joint attack of more than 1,000,000 experts at the martial sage realm. Although the mansion's formation could weaken more than 90% of the terrifying power, the remaining 10% of the attack power was still at the level of a cultivator at the immortal realm. This also caused Thaling, whose cultivation was only at the peak of the 9th grade sovereign realm, to suffer unimaginable damage to his divine soul. In the face of Thaling's anxious questioning, the first doppelganger shook his head and said nothing. Break out of the encirclement. Given the degree of damage to the mansion's formation and the heavy injuries he had sustained, he wouldn't be able to hold on for even half a minute. Therefore, without being able to contact Yuhauran, and without being able to confirm the exact time he would return to the profound sky continent, Thaling quickly put away the reluctance and anger in his heart, and immediately decided to abandon the people in the prince's mansion. Then, he would bring Qin Lingfei and the sword without trace to break out of the encirclement and escape. Thaling, wait a moment. Just as Thaling quickly summoned the spacetime victor, and was about to forcibly absorb Qin Lingfei and the sword without trace into the victor, his first doppelganger, who had a look of ecstasy on his face, hurriedly stopped him. What happened? Thaling immediately retracted his divine sense that was about to trap Qin Lingfei and the sword without trace. His eyes were filled with anticipation as he asked, "The original body is back?" The first doppelganger said in surprise as he raised his head to look at the void of the mansion. As the first doppelganger's surprised voice fell, a voice filled with endless anger and murderous intent suddenly rang out in the void of the southern mountain range. "Those who attack the prince's mansion will be killed without mercy. Those who attack the prince's mansion will be killed without mercy. Those who dare to attack the prince's mansion will be killed no matter how far away they are." Accompanied by the voice filled with endless anger and murderous intent, Yuhauran, who was holding the celestial slayer's sword and had an icy temperament and long hair, instantly appeared in the void above the mansion. Using his divine sense, he quickly scanned the 2/3 of the mansion that had been destroyed. When he discovered that his sister Yusiki, his beloved Qin Lingfei and the sword without trace, his good friends Lu Yuan, Wu Jingjun, Qing Feng and Palace, as well as his seniors, the blood-void beast and the long-armed ape were all safe, he couldn't help but heave a sigh of relief. However, when he saw that 1/3 of the 100,000 elite soldiers he had painstakingly nurtured from the northern mountain range had been lost, and more than half of the comrades who had promised to lead them back to glory had been lost, a clear blood-red murderous intent surfaced in his eyes, causing him to grit his teeth and give an order to the life-stealing spirit rat. "Brother Black, do your best to control the fates of those people. Regardless of whether they are supreme existences at the peak of the 7th grade sovereign realm or ants who had just advanced to the martial saint realm, I want their strength to fall below the martial master realm." "No problem." Without the profound sky continent's atmosphere isolating the fates of all living things, the life-stealing spirit rat, who was able to control the fates of all living things through the Destiny Stone tablet, nodded in response. At the same time, it immediately transformed into nearly 500,000 pairs of tiny short claws, then quickly covered nearly 1/10 of the Destiny Stone tablet. "Quick, before Yuhauran returns to the prince's mansion, use all your strength to destroy the prince's mansion." Just as Yuhauran appeared in the void above the mansion, the blue dragon divine beast, who had a bad feeling in his heart, immediately gave an order to the remaining experts that numbered less than 1,000,000. "Immediately overdraw all of your spiritual energy and soul power within a safe range, then inject them into the mansion's defensive array, and use all your strength to resist the opponent's final attack." At the same time, Thaling, who had quickly returned to the array's control hub, also hurriedly gave an order to the remaining people in the prince's mansion. "What's going on? Why did my spiritual energy and soul power disappear?" Just as the blue dragon divine beast finished giving the order, a martial god expert who was fully mobilizing his spiritual energy and soul power, suddenly shouted in a panic. Not only have my spiritual energy and soul power been weakened by more than 90%, but I can't even sense the profound mysteries of the laws. Another martial god expert who was preparing to perform the profound mysteries of the laws also shouted in a panic. Ah! Restricted by its own cultivation, the life-stealing spirit rat was temporarily unable to control the fates of experts above 8th grade supreme. There were a total of 60 experts above 8th grade supreme from the 4 great guardian families, the ancient Nether clan, the ancient demon clan, the Zhongli clan, and the rogue cultivators. Among them were the blue dragon, the white tiger, the vermilion bird, and the black tortoise, who had just entered the half-tribulation immortal realm. When 68th grade supreme martial artists and above joined forces, the terrifying aura they exuded began to continuously push back, send flying, stun, kill, and shatter those experts whose cultivation levels were constantly falling. This also caused the entire mountain range to resound with continuous screams. The sudden change made the 60 experts above 8th grade supreme, including the blue dragon divine beast, immediately suppress the power of their attacks and quickly restrain the terrifying aura they emitted. However, at this moment, Yu Haoran's voice suddenly sounded from the top of the mansion. "Everyone in the prince's mansion, listen to my order. Listen to your order." The first to react were the remaining 50,000-plus elite soldiers of the North Road in the prince's mansion. They all got up and knelt down on one knee to listen to the order. "Disciples, listen to my order." The second to react were the remaining 400 people of the 100 Qi Gate. They also knelt down on one knee to listen to the order. "Listen to my order, Qin Lingfei." The third to react was Qin Lingfei, whose status was higher than Yu Haoran's. This was because she knew that the crisis in the prince's mansion this time was the opportunity to truly establish her leadership. However, she didn't need to kneel down on one knee like the elite soldiers of the North Road. She only needed to bend her body. "The sword without trace, listen to my order. Wu Jingjun, listen to my order. Yu Siki, listen to my order." Chapter 2069. In the mountain range where the 100 Qi Gate was located, in the prince's mansion, Faling also knew that Yu Haoran, who had resolved the crisis of the prince's mansion in time, would bring an unimaginable visual and psychological impact to everyone present, whether it was his return at the critical moment or his means of controlling the fate of millions of experts in an instant. At the same time, this was the best opportunity for him to subdue the blood void beast, the long-armed ape, Palace, Qing Feng, and the Xianyuan device spirit. Therefore, just as Lu Yuan's voice fell, Faling also bowed respectfully and cupped his hands in obeisance. "Violet Spirit, listen to my command." Even Violet Spirit, a primordial treasure born in the chaos and once famous throughout the ancient and Middle Ages, respectfully obeyed his command. The Xianyuan device spirits, the blood void beast, the long-armed ape, Qing Feng, and Palace, who had quickly left the space of Lu Yuan's sea of consciousness, showed shock and suspicion in their eyes. "Palace, listen to my command." In the end, Palace, who had been with Yu Haoran for the longest time, had a deeper relationship with him, and respected Violet Spirit even more. He bowed first and cupped his hands in obeisance. Immediately after, the Xianyuan device spirits and Qing Feng also bowed and cupped their hands in obeisance. Only the long-armed ape, which was the oldest blood void beast and had the most arrogant bloodline, only straightened its body and cupped its hands in obeisance, and did not show any sign of obedience. In this regard, the eyes of the people in the prince's mansion suddenly showed strong dissatisfaction, and at the same time, formed an irreconcilable estrangement between them and the blood void beast and the long-armed ape. However, Yu Haoran did not seem to care at all and ordered, "All experts below the supremacy stage, immediately enter the mountain range where the sect is located and kill everyone who dares to invade the prince's mansion. Do not let any enemy go. Yes, sir. The people in the prince's mansion responded in unison and immediately soared into the air and rushed into the mountain range. Soon, the mountain range was filled with miserable howls of pain, as well as the voices of experts from some forces and rogue cultivators who surrendered and begged for mercy. The remaining Supremes, come to my side immediately. Due to the influence of the time of their debut, in the entire prince's mansion, only Thaling, Xuanyuan's artifact spirit, and the blood-void beast had broken through to the supremacy realm. Among them, the blood-void beast and Thaling were both at the pinnacle of 9th grade supreme being, while the Xuanyuan artifact spirit had just recovered to the early 9th grade supreme being level. However, Yusiki, who had a special body constitution and the inheritance of the Supreme Master, and the long-armed ape, who had the bloodline of the ancient long-armed divine ape, had the strength of a Supreme Master even though they were only at the peak of the 9th level of the martial god realm. Therefore, they also flew to Yuhaoran's side. Although Yusiki and the long-armed ape both possessed the strength of a martial saint, they were limited by their own cultivation realm. At most, they could only deal with experts below the 7th grade of the martial saint realm. As for the 60 experts that they were going to face, the weakest among them was at the early 8th grade supreme being level. They were not opponents that they could fight against at all. Therefore, the moment they stood in the air, Yuhaoran shook his head and instructed with a gentle expression. Sister, senior long-armed ape, the following battle is not something that you can participate in. It's better for you to go to the mountains and hunt down the enemies who dare to invade our prince's mansion. Holding the celestial slashing sword, activating the immortal supreme being's physique, and using the supreme ultimate strike, you can fight against a peak 8th grade supreme being, severely injure a high 8th grade supreme being, and kill a middle 8th grade supreme being. Faced with Yuhaoran's order to refuse to participate in the battle, Yusiki, who had suddenly pulled out the celestial slashing sword, pointed the tip of the sword at an early 8th grade supreme being expert, and stated the reason why she could stay behind with a murderous aura. Transforming into the true body of the ancestor, and using the martial technique of the bloodline, you can fight against an early 9th grade supreme being, severely injure a peak 8th grade supreme being, and kill a high 8th grade supreme being. Long-armed ape, who had taken a step forward, glared at the two high 8th grade supreme being experts, and stated the reason why he could stay behind with a murderous aura. Alright. Since they had already explained in detail the strength of the opponents that they could fight against and kill, Yuhaoran could only nod his head and agree to Yusiki and long-armed ape's request to participate in the battle. Subsequently, he instructed the blood-void beast, Thaling, and Xuanyuan artifact spirit. Leave the 4 divine beasts, who have reached the half-tribulation immortal realm to me, and I'll leave the remaining 40 over supreme being experts to you. At this point, Yuhaoran suddenly switched to using his divine sense to instruct them solemnly. Remember, if you can kill them, kill them. If you can't, try your best to stall for time until Senior Su completely returns to the Tianxian continent. Got it? Thaling, blood-void beast, and Xuanyuan artifact spirit glanced at the 38th grade supreme being and a dozen 9th grade supreme being opponents, and nodded their heads without much nervousness. Their gazes lingered on the blood-void beast for a moment, and a hint of hesitation appeared in their eyes. Originally, Yuhaoran's plan before returning to the Tianxian continent was to give the space law crystal obtained by the Void Spirit Mouse to the blood-void beast as soon as possible, so that he could use the crystal to quickly recover his cultivation, and then cooperate with him to kill the 4 divine beasts who had just reached the half-tribulation immortal realm. However, when everyone was respectfully listening to his orders, the blood-void beast and long-armed ape's refusal made him a little wary. He was worried that they would shrink back in the future, or betray him even more heartbroken. Therefore, after a short moment of hesitation, Yuhaoran decided to continue testing the blood-void beast and long-armed ape for a period of time. When he was sure that they were 100% loyal, or if they could cultivate feelings like Lu Yuan and Wu Jingjun, he would give the space law crystal to the blood void beast. Yu Haoran, what kind of forbidden secret technique did you use just now? In less than 30 seconds, all the experts below the peak of 7th grade Supreme Being had their cultivation weakened to the martial master realm. Such a strange technique made the blue dragon extremely fearful, and it did not take the risk to launch an attack. Didn't your ancestor, Supreme Blue Dragon, tell you? Yu Haoran asked with a cold smile. The blue dragon frowned slightly, and a hint of doubt flashed in its eyes. This was because it believed that if its ancestor knew that Yu Haoran could weaken the strength of his opponents, he would definitely have told it in advance. Then, the 4 great guardian families would not be annihilated. Believe it or not, it's up to you. Faced with the questioning gaze of the blue dragon, Yu Haoran could not be bothered to explain on behalf of the blue dragon. Just as he drew out the celestial slaying sword and prepared for battle, a transmission jade scroll emitting a green glow was sent directly to the Blue Dragon clan leader, who was being chased in the mountains. The divine beast Azure Dragon, who knew the origin of the jade slip, used its powerful divine sense to intercept the jade slip and quickly read the information in it. Immediately after, an unimaginably terrifying murderous aura rose rapidly from the body of the blue dragon. Then, its eyes turned red, and it gritted its teeth as it reprimanded Lin Fan. Chapter 2070. In the mountain range where the 100 Chi Gate was located. Considering Yu Haoran's endless trump cards since his debut, the Azure Dragon godly beast left the 2 young Azure Dragons in the spirit pool in the mountain range where the White Tiger clan was located. It was worried that the attack on the Prince Consort's residence would fail. Thus, when it led the experts of the 4 guardian families away from the White Tiger clan's encampment, the Azure Dragon godly beast left the 2 young Azure Dragons in the spirit pool in the mountain range where the White Tiger clan was located. However, in the Jade Talisman he had just received, it mentioned that a group of mysterious experts had suddenly launched a sneak attack on the White Tiger clan's encampment. Not only had they crazily massacred the old, weak, sick, and disabled of the Blue Dragon clan and the White Tiger clan, they had also captured all the widows and orphans, as well as the 2 young Blue Dragon clan and the 3 young White Tiger clan. Although the Jade Talisman didn't mention the origin of that group of mysterious experts, the Blue Dragon Divine Beast immediately suspected Yu Haoran. After all, Yu Haoran's vicious character of seeking revenge for the smallest grievance could be said to be known by everyone in the entire Tianxian continent. After hearing the Blue Dragon Divine Beast's accusation, Yu Haoran, who felt baffled, couldn't help but frown as he mobilized his divine perception. Then, he directly swept across the entire southern and central mountain ranges. Very quickly, he discovered that in the encampment of the White Tiger clan, Emperor Qin and the others were crazily massacring the old, weak, sick, and disabled of the Blue Dragon clan and the White Tiger clan. As the ruler of a country, the most important thing to pay attention to was prestige and reputation. Prestige was a means to intimidate the civil and military officials. Reputation, on the other hand, was the foundation to protect the throne. However, what Emperor Qin was currently doing was weakening his prestige among the civil and military officials. It was destroying his reputation as a benevolent ruler that he had always protected. Then, what was his reason for doing this? However, when he saw that the Qin Emperor had tied the captured orphans and widows to the stone pillars that were built temporarily and forced them to ask for help from the experts of their families through the jade slips of inheritance, he immediately knew that this was a method of besieging way to rescue Zhao. When he thought about how Emperor Qin was willing to bear the reputation of being a cruel and bloodthirsty tyrant in order to save the prince's mansion from being besieged, Yu Haoran felt a warm feeling in his heart. He decided to take the initiative to take on the evil reputation of slaughtering the old, weak, sick, and disabled, and forcing orphans and widows. Reptile, you asked if this prince consort has any sense of shame, if this prince consort has any martial Dao heart, Then have you touched your own conscience and asked yourself? Yuharan took a step forward and pointed at the dead sect elders lying on the square in the front yard of the prince consort's residence as he questioned with a stern voice. Those elders were the meritorious officials of my 100 Gate. They had sacrificed their own blood and youth for the development of the sect. However, due to the influence of their own talent and environment, they were unable to continue to increase their lifespan through the advancement of their cultivation. Now, when their lifespan is about to come to an end, they just want to leave this world quietly. But what about you? Faced with Yuharan's questioning, the blue dragon was suddenly speechless and didn't know how to refute. After all, their siege just now had caused the old, weak, sick, and disabled casualties of the 100 Gate. It was no different from the massacre that Emperor Qin was currently doing. Yuharan, immediately release the Blue Dragon clan's 2 young blue dragons and my White Tiger clan's 3 young white tigers. Otherwise, my White Tiger will definitely slaughter everyone in your prince's mansion. Seeing that the Blue Dragon Divine Beast was unable to refute Yuharan's questioning, the hot-tempered White Tiger Divine Beast immediately threatened him with a murderous aura. You're crazy. Looking at the White Tiger Divine Beast with an idiotic expression, Yuharan asked with a cold smile. Don't tell me that when you led millions of experts of the Martial Saint realm and above to besiege the prince's mansion, you planned to let go of my close friends and family? Yuharan, you're courting death. The irrefutable humiliation directly ignited the killing intent in the White Tiger Divine Beast's heart. At the same time as it roared, it directly pounced towards Yuharan. In response, Yuharan only smiled indifferently and took a step forward. However, when he took this step, he didn't make any contact with the White Tiger Divine Beast. Instead, he instantly appeared in the White Tiger clan's encampment. Furthermore, before Emperor Qin and the others knew what was going on, the 2 young blue dragon and the 3 young white tiger tied to the stone pillars instantly disappeared without a trace. Fortunately, when Yuharan took away the young blue dragon and white tiger, he also left behind a voice that made Emperor Qin and the civil and military officials instantly heave a sigh of relief. Your Majesty, thank you very much. Being able to come and go freely when surrounded by powerful enemies means that the son-in-law is confident in defeating the 4 great guardian clans and the encirclement of countless experts. There's no need for us to use the method of capturing orphans and widows to threaten them. Looking at the stone pillars that had lost the young blue dragon and white tiger, the sovereign of the mental demon Yu Luoran's eyes revealed an intense expression of shock and fear. He immediately decided to carry out the plan of rebirth. This was because he was worried that if he continued to delay, Yuharan, whose strength had clearly surpassed the remnant soul, would very likely take action to eliminate him in advance. After all, he had fully witnessed the deep relationship between Yuharan and Emperor Qin that surpassed the relationship between father and son-in-law. He knew that Yuharan definitely wouldn't allow Emperor Qin to continue cultivating the forbidden secret technique of devouring the flesh and blood essence of living beings. Your Majesty, since these captured people are no longer useful, to prevent them from threatening the Empire in the future when they grow up, let's kill them all. Alright. Because of Yuharan's sudden appearance and thanks, Emperor Qin, who was overjoyed, didn't notice the excitement and nervousness in the sovereign of the mental demon Yu Luoran's reminder at all. After he instinctively nodded in agreement, he made a beheading gesture to Meng Zhengkai and the others. Over 100,000 orphans and widows of the Blue Dragon and White Tiger clans were all slaughtered in less than 30 seconds. However, what the Qin Emperor and the others didn't notice was that as tens of thousands of old, weak, sick, and disabled people were killed along with more than 100,000 orphans and widows, traces of blood fog gradually appeared in the mountain range of the White Tiger clan. At the same time, the sky in the cloudless sky gradually darkened. Yuharan, you're despicable, you're shameless. The White Tiger Divine Beast, who quickly rushed in front of Yuharan, waved its tiger claws, intending to attack the other party. However, 3 young white tigers suddenly appeared in front of it, causing it to forcibly stop waving its tiger claws. Moreover, it couldn't help but raise its head to the sky and curse angrily. "Shut up!" Yuhauran directly stretched out his right hand and pressed it on the forehead of a young white tiger. At the same time as he shouted, he blatantly threatened. "White tiger, if you continue with your nonsense, do you believe that this prince consort won't destroy the soul of this young white tiger right now?" Yuhauran's blatant threat caused the white tiger divine beast's expression to change. At the same time, it quickly retreated 100 meters and begged. "Yuhauran, as long as you're willing to let go of these 3 young tiger cubs, no matter what request you have, I, the white tiger divine beast, will agree to it." "Really?" Chapter 2071. In the mountain range where the 100 Chi Gate was located. "That's right." Facing Yuhauran's questioning question, the white tiger sovereign nodded solemnly in confirmation. Then, he patted his thick chest and promised. "Yuhauran, as long as you're willing to let go of the 3 young tigers, I'll agree to any excessive request." The blue dragon divine beast, who originally wanted to stop the white tiger divine beast from acting rashly, couldn't help but sigh and didn't say anything else after hearing his promise regardless of the consequences. Regardless of whether it was the 4 ancestors of the half-tribulation immortal realm or the 2nd generation of the bloodline, they were fighting for all kinds of opportunities everywhere. Other than wanting to live longer, what they valued more was the inheritance of the pure bloodline. However, due to the influence of their own bloodline and the restriction of the Heavenly Ways rules, the probability of a pure bloodline descendant appearing was very slim. It was only possible for a pure bloodline descendant to be born roughly every 100 million years. This was also the important reason why the Black Tortoise divine beast of the Black Tortoise clan was suppressed and punished in the end, even though they clearly had evidence of him betraying the clan. As for the 2 young blue dragon divine beasts and the 3 young white tiger divine beasts in Yuhauran's hands, they were born under a burst of luck. This was also the first time since the birth of the 4 ancestors. Therefore, the blue dragon divine beast understood the white tiger divine beast's feelings and impulse to rescue the young white tiger divine beast. "As long as you help me kill the Zhongli clan's divine beasts, I'll return the 3 young white tiger divine beasts safely." Yuhauran pointed at the remaining 13 8th grade divine beasts of the Zhongli clan and stated his request. Then, he pointed at the ancient Nether tribe's 7 supremes, ranging from early grade 8 to peak grade 9, and asked the divine beast Azure Dragon, "Worm, as long as you can kill the ancient underworld clan's divine beasts, I'll also return the 2 young blue dragon divine beasts safely." After hearing Yuhauran's request, the white tiger divine beasts and the blue dragon divine beasts looked at each other and saw the strong killing intent in each other's eyes. In order to completely kill the ancient underworld clan's divine beasts and the Zhongli clan's divine beasts, the blue dragon divine beast asked Yuhauran divine beast, "Yuhauran, no matter what method we use, as long as we can kill the primordial underworld clan and the Zhongli clan's utmost exalted experts, will you return the Azure Dragon and White Tiger safely? I only care about the result of death. I don't care about the process or method of death." Yuhauran, who had already guessed the Azure Dragon's method, replied with a smile. Second brother, third sister, fourth brother, set up the 4 symbols concentration formation immediately. After receiving Yuhauran's approval, the blue dragon divine beasts immediately ordered the white tiger divine beasts, the vermilion bird divine beasts, and the black tortoise divine beast. Retreat. In fact, when the blue dragon divine beasts asked Yuhauran for confirmation, the strongest divine ancestor of the Zhongli clan already knew that the 4 divine beasts of the Guardian clans would definitely attack them. Therefore, when the blue dragon divine beasts ordered the other 3 divine beasts to set up the formation, the strongest divine ancestor, who had already torn open the void in advance, warned the remaining 12 divine beasts. When he saw that the 13 divine beasts of the Zhongli clan were planning to use the method of tearing open the void to escape, Yuhaoran sneered and directly stretched out his hand towards the void of the mountain range, and shouted, "Condense!" As Yuhaoran shouted, the 13 divine beasts of the Zhongli clan, who had suddenly charged into the crack in the void, were immediately bounced back. "Yuhaoran, you're courting death." Yuhaoran's ability to control the mysteries of the laws of space was no longer a secret. Therefore, after being forcefully bounced back, the strongest divine ancestor of the Zhongli clan roared fiercely and charged towards Yuhaoran with murderous intent. White Tiger! Yuhaoran didn't pay any attention to the strongest patriarch of the Zhongli family who was charging at him. Instead, he gently patted the young white tiger's forehead with his right hand and reminded the white tiger with a smile. 4 symbols concentration formation trap. Facing Yuhaoran's silent threat, the white tiger divine beast spat out 3 mouthfuls of blood essence and took the lead to complete the 4 symbols concentration formation. At the same time, he directly trapped the 13 divine beasts of the Zhongli clan in the formation. Then, the blue dragon divine beasts, who had completed the formation, took the opportunity to trap the 7 divine beasts of the ancient Nether clan who were trying to escape. Without the obstruction of the 4 divine beasts who had just entered the half-tribulation immortal realm, and without the interference of the ancient Nether clan and the Zhongli clan's divine beasts, Yuhaoran directly looked at the ancient Nether clan's divine beasts with intense murderous intent in his eyes. Immediately perform the bloodline summoning secret technique and wake up the 3 half-tribulation immortal realm masters who are in deep slumber. Previously, when Yuhaoran had completed the reward of the divine tribulation lightning punishment, he had used the immortal execution sword and the formation in the mountain range to easily kill a half-tribulation immortal realm expert. Therefore, when he saw Yuhaoran looking at him with murderous intent, the strongest ancient Nether clan's divine beasts, who had reached the peak of 9th grade sovereign realm, ordered his remaining 5 companions loudly. Without any hesitation, the 6 ancient Nether clan's divine beasts quickly cut open their chests and gathered their blood together to form a blood-red hexagonal star. Oh no! Suddenly, Yuhaoran thought that the vermilion bird supreme in the endless void had once used the Phoenix Nirvana secret technique to burn his flesh and divine soul to form a hexagonal star with the ability to transmit. At the same time, he immediately mobilized the power of the rules of space, intending to destroy the 5-star summoning formation formed by the blood of the 5 ancient Nether clan's divine beasts. Suddenly, the entire mountain range where the 100 Chi Gate was located shook violently. Along with the shaking of the mountain range, a mushroom-like black smoke suddenly rose from the valley where the demon sealing secret territory was located less than 1,000 miles away. Without any hesitation, Yuhaoran immediately mobilized all of his divine thought to lock on to the demon sealing secret territory. However, he was immediately shocked by what had happened in the demon sealing secret territory. The space barrier that separated the Tianxian continent and the secret territory had completely disappeared. The demon sealing secret territory and the Tianxian continent had completely merged into one. However, the secret territory was located in a 10,000-meter deep pit in the valley, so it had no effect on the entire southern region. The demon sealing secret territory was originally filled with heaven and earth spiritual chi, and the scenery was as beautiful as a painting. At this moment, not only was it destroyed by the power of the explosion, but countless ancient demon clan experts' corpses were scattered all over the secret realm. What the hell is going on? The 6 ancient Nether clan's divine beasts, who had also noticed the changes in the demon sealing secret territory, muttered to themselves in disbelief. Could it be that our ancient Nether clan has been ambushed by a terrifying Third Tribulation immortal realm expert? Chapter 2072. In the mountain range where the 100 Chi Gate was located. Just as everyone was shocked by the earth-shaking changes in the demon sealing secret realm, a primordial demon clan youth with a weak aura and a slightly disheveled appearance led less than 10,000 primordial demon clan experts to the front of the 6 primordial demon clan supreme experts. Emochi greets the 2 princes and the 4 dukes. Demon Son Emochi, what happened in the demon sealing secret realm? Upon seeing the Devil's Son Emochi, who had lost half of his black wings, the strongest expert of the ancient demon clan instantly appeared in front of him and asked anxiously, "Iron Blood Prince, everything is destroyed. Tens of millions of clansmen, all the demon princes and princesses except for me, all the imperial concubines and imperial preceptors, as well as father and nobles, all died in the destruction just now. The hope of our ancient demon clan rising again has been completely destroyed." Emochi, who quickly swallowed a saint pill, explained with a sad expression. "Demon Son Emochi, what was the explosion just now? Why did it have such terrifying power? Not only could it destroy the space barrier of the demon sealing secret realm, but it could also kill the demon emperor who was about to reach the 3rd trial immortal realm." The Iron Blood Prince, the strongest of the ancient demon clan, asked with a puzzled expression. "Grand Emo, it was all that bastard Grand Mo's doing. Not only did he secretly cultivate the number 1 taboo secret technique, the soul-seizing technique, but he also used it to control hundreds of clansmen of different realms in the clan. Then, he ordered them to burn their devil bodies and devil souls to set up a peak supreme-level infinite destruction formation to destroy the forbidden area in the demon-sealing secret realm." Emochi gritted his teeth and said with a hint of fear and relief in his eyes, "If it weren't for my low cultivation base and low status, I would have been sent to the outermost area of the Forbidden Land. If it weren't for the innate spiritual treasure 9 dragon picture that my mother gave me before I fell asleep. If it weren't for the great prince's demon soul, which took the most powerful impact for me at the critical moment, I would have died in the explosion of the infinite destruction formation. Why? Why did Demon Son Mo how do that?" Hearing Emochi's explanation and relief, the Iron Blood Prince asked with a puzzled expression. After all, as the first demonic son to awaken, how Mo could be said to have received the respect of millions of clansmen in the ancient demonic mystic realm? He was also taken care of by the royal nobles and the emperor's preceptor. Under such circumstances, why would he do something as crazy as perishing together with his entire race? "Who knows what that bastard is thinking?" Emochi said angrily. "Why, it's all because of you." In fact, when Yuhauran heard that Mo Hao had used the soul-absorbing and soul-seizing skill to control the ancient demon clan powerhouse and set up the number 1 self-destructing formation in the ancient era, he had already guessed the reason. "Yuhauran, what do you mean by what you just said?" The Iron Blood Prince suddenly turned around and asked with a stern expression. "As the saying goes, when a dog is anxious, it will jump over a wall. When a rabbit is anxious, it will bite." Yuhauran mocked the Iron Blood Prince as the corners of his mouth curled up slightly. "Back then, when I used the momentum of breaking through to the martial god realm to kill my way into your ancient demon clan's lair, it was Demon Son Mo Hao who swore an oath on his inner demon and martial way in exchange for my temporary forgiveness for the crime of offending the sect. Now, without Mo Hao's consent, you have led the ancient demon clan's army to besiege my prince's mansion. This is equivalent to breaking the oath you swore back then. When your martial way foundation is about to be destroyed and your inner demon is about to devour your spirit, I don't think Brother Mo Hao wants to leave so quietly. He wants to die with a bang. He wants you to remember forever that even an ant who can't control his own fate has the courage and dignity to perish together." After hearing Yuhauran's sarcastic explanation, the Iron Blood Prince and the other sovereigns could not help but change their expressions. It was only now that they suddenly remembered the oath that Mo Hao had made on his inner demons and martial arts. "Who are you, brat?" Emochi, who didn't know Yuhauran well, asked arrogantly. Perhaps it was because he had just woken up, or perhaps it was because he hadn't fully adapted to the fact that his clan had fallen from their pedestal. "Run, demon son." The Iron Blood Prince's expression changed when he heard Yuhauran's reprimand. He immediately rushed toward Yuhauran and reminded Emochi loudly. "Unless you are a terrifying expert at the peak of the Second Tribulation Immortal Realm, don't even think about escaping from me, Yuhauran." Accompanied by an incomparably domineering voice, Yuhauran, who was standing in front of the Iron Blood Prince, didn't move. However, the tip of the Zhu Immortal Sword had already pierced Emochi's forehead. Then, the Zhu Immortal Sword instantly devoured Emochi's spirit. Although Emochi's status in the imperial family was not high due to the influence of his wife's identity, his talent and potential were very outstanding. At the same time, the Divine Emperor and all the demon sons had died in the explosion of the Infinite Destruction formation. Emochi was the only direct descendant of the imperial family of the ancient demon clan. He carried the inheritance and the hope of the ancient demon clan's rise again. Now, even the last hope of the ancient demon clan's inheritance and rise again had been completely wiped out by Yuhauran. This immediately aroused the anger and madness of the more than 10,000 ancient demon clan experts who had luckily escaped the explosion of the formation, as well as the 6 supreme experts including the Iron Blood Prince. They rushed toward Yuhauran with an aura that seemed to be unafraid of death. "Kill! Kill! Kill!" There was no need for Yuhauran's special reminder and instructions. Seeing more than 10,000 ancient demon clan experts charging over, the Pagoda Spirit, Xianyuan Beast Spirit, Yusiki, and the long-armed ape immediately went up to meet them with murderous intent. Furthermore, they also pulled in the experts from the 4 great guardian families, ranging from the early stage of 8th grade Supreme Being to the peak of 9th grade Supreme Being, as well as the Supreme Being experts among the rogue cultivators. "You guys go and deal with the supreme experts of the other realms." Yuhauran instructed Thaling and the Shuyuan Beast after using the Zhu Immortal Sword to envelop the 7 experts at the peak of the 9th grade Supreme Martial Artist realm in his aura field. Thaling and the Shuyuan Beast, who already knew that Yuhauran had successfully comprehended the rules of space, knew very well that even if he wasn't a match for the 7 experts at the peak of the 9th grade Supreme Martial Artist realm, he wouldn't encounter any fatal danger. Therefore, they didn't hesitate to kill the 9 experts at the peak and middle stage of the 9th grade Supreme Martial Artist realm. If he used the method of overdrawing his divine power and soul power together with the Zhu Immortal Sword to perform the Zhu Immortal Sword technique, he was confident that he could completely kill the 9 experts at the peak of the 9th grade Supreme Martial Artist realm within 3 moves. However, considering that he had the Blue Dragon, the White Tiger, the Vermilion Bird, and the Black Tortoise, who had just entered the half-tribulation immortal realm and could set up formations, Yuhauran didn't choose to take the risk of overdrawing his divine power and soul power. Chapter 2073. In the mountain range where the 100 Chi Gate was located. 2 minutes. In the short span of 2 minutes, other than the Iron Blood Prince, who was the strongest in the ancient demon clan, and a peak 9th grade sovereign from the ancient underworld clan, the remaining 6 9th grade sovereigns were easily killed by Yuhauran using sneak attacks and guerrilla warfare tactic. "Your Highness Henin, how about we join forces to cast the soul-extinguishing storm?" The Iron Blood Prince, who had paid a heavy price to force Yuhauran to retreat, suggested to the peak 9th grade sovereign from the ancient underworld clan. All right. If they didn't join forces to cast the soul-extinguishing storm, with Yuhauran's terrifying speed and the powerful attack of the celestial slaying sword, they would only be able to hold on for half a minute at most before their bodies and souls were destroyed. Therefore, after hearing the Iron Blood Prince's suggestion, Henin first glanced at the 4 symbols concentration formation that trapped the underworld clan's experts, then retracted his gaze and nodded. The 5 pairs of black wings on the Iron Blood Prince's back left his back the moment he received Henin's approval, and he quickly flew towards Henin. At the same time, from between Henin's brows, a soul that was more solid than his physical body quickly walked out and rushed towards the 5 pairs of black wings. Soul explosion. Just as the soul completely merged with the 5 pairs of black wings, Henin's soul roared. Perhaps it was because the ancient underworld clan's soul cultivation was too heaven-defying, and they could faintly resist part of the binding of the rules of fate, so there were very few records of the ancient underworld clan's secret techniques in the Destiny Stone Tablets' inherited memories. It was only when Henin's soul roared that he suddenly remembered that Thaling had mentioned the soul-extinguishing storm of the ancient underworld clan's forbidden secret technique. Thinking of the power of the soul-extinguishing storm by destroying one's own foundation, Yuhauran's expression changed slightly. He immediately mobilized the power of the rules of space and rushed to the void above the mountain range. He planned to lead the power of the soul-extinguishing storm to the endless void, then use the atmosphere of the Tianxian continent to destroy the power of the secret technique. However, when the soul-extinguishing storm's secret technique formed a high-speed tornado, Yuhauran's expression changed. This was because he discovered that the high-speed rotating tornado actually possessed a speed that was not inferior to, or even slightly superior to, the spatial rule power. After taking a deep breath and quickly calming down, Yuhauran immediately mobilized the space law crystal that was temporarily sealed in his sea of consciousness. He intended to absorb the energy of the space law crystal to continue to enhance his control of the space law force and thereby increase his speed of crossing the void. Your Highness Henin, it looks like we have to go all out. The Iron Blood Prince, whose aura had already fallen to the peak of the 9th grade martial god, suggested to Yuhauran with a bitter smile on his face when he saw the originally disadvantaged Yuhauran's speed actually increase bit by bit. As long as I can kill the Child of Destiny, even if I end up with my soul destroyed, it is worth it. His Highness Henin's expression was as cold as ice. After expressing his stance in the face of death, a white flame immediately ignited between his eyebrows. The white flame traversed the barriers of time and space at a speed that was completely unimaginable and quickly merged into the tornado formed by the soul-extinguishing storm secret technique. Subsequently, the tornado's speed increased by nearly 3 times, and it was getting closer and closer to Yuhauran. Just as His Highness Henin used the method of overdrawing his potential to increase the tornado's speed, 10 black feathers slowly extended from the Iron Blood Prince's back. Immediately after, the 10 black feathers automatically ignited into 10 bursts of black flames. After the 10 bursts of black flames gathered together, they also rapidly merged into the tornado formed by the soul-extinguishing storm secret technique at an unimaginable speed. Subsequently, the tornado's speed also increased by more than 3 times, and it directly appeared behind Yuhauran. When he felt the fatal danger that the tornado formed by the soul-extinguishing storm secret technique brought to his soul, Yuhauran hurriedly mobilized the Rui Bell, which had advanced to the supreme stage, and merged it into his soul to act as the first layer of defense against the tornado. Overdrawing a third of his soul power, he quickly constructed a defensive formation in his sea of consciousness to act as the second layer of defense against the tornado. Finally, he took out the innate 5 elements formation flags that he had already gathered and surrounded his body. He also stopped the power of the laws of space to act as the third layer of defense against the tornado. When he was fully prepared to defend himself, the tornado, whose speed had increased by more than 6 times, smashed into his body. 3 seconds. In just 3 seconds, the innate 5 elements formation flags, whose defensive power had reached the level of a supreme stage artifact, was forcefully torn apart by the tornado, causing the innate 5 elements formation flag's origin to suffer a certain degree of damage. 2 seconds. In just 2 seconds, the innate 5 elements formation, which had overdrawn a third of his soul power to construct a defensive formation in his sea of consciousness, was also forcefully torn apart by the tornado. Then, it directly attacked his soul in his sea of consciousness. Even the innate 5 elements formation flags, whose defensive power had reached the level of a supreme stage artifact, could not withstand the tearing power of the tornado that destroyed everything. In that case, the Rui Bell, which had just been promoted to a lower supreme stage artifact, would probably not be able to hold on for even a second. In order to preserve the hope of making a comeback, and also in order to preserve the profound mysteries of the laws of life and death, as well as the laws of space, Yuhauran had no choice but to choose to give up his physical body. However, just as his soul was about to leave his sea of consciousness and completely give up on tempering his perfect physical body, a terrifying force appeared out of thin air in his sea of consciousness and directly destroyed the tornado formed by the soul-destroying storm mystic technique. Senior Su. After the familiar terrifying force stopped his soul from leaving his sea of consciousness, Yuhauran could not help but shout in surprise. Su Hanwen, who had instantly appeared beside Yuhauran, said apologetically, "Little friend Yu, I'm sorry. I was unexpectedly blocked by the space storm and was more than a minute later than expected." "Senior Su, you're not late at all. The time is just right." As he hurriedly waved his hand, Yuhauran's murderous gaze turned towards the Iron Blood Prince and Prince Henin, whose auras had fallen to the level of Emperor Wu. Boom boom. With 2 consecutive loud explosions, the Iron Blood Prince and Prince Henin were directly smashed into powder by Yuhauran's heavy fist. However, to Yuhauran and Su Hanwen's surprise, 5 gray imprints that emitted a mysterious aura floated in the midst of the powder that filled the air. These are the primal chaos imprints. When he saw the 5 gray imprints emitting a mysterious aura, Yuhauran could not help but shout in surprise. At the same time, the spiritual aura emitted by the primal chaos imprints and Yuhauran's shout immediately attracted Thaling's attention. After using all his strength to kill the 8 martial god realm ancient demons, he appeared beside the 5 primal chaos imprints in a flash. With a wave of his sleeve, he collected the primal chaos imprints and returned to Yuhauran's sea of consciousness. Chapter 2074. In the mountain range where the 100 Chi Gate was located. Elder Su, please take a rest. After Thaling returned to the top floor of the Spacetime Victor with the Rui Bell and the 5 chaotic imprints, Yuhauran nodded to Su Hanwen. Then, with the celestial slaying sword in hand, he charged toward the remaining ancient demon clan experts, as well as the supreme being experts from the top forces and rogue cultivators. Regardless of whether it was Thaling, the Blood Void Beast, the Xianyuan Weapon Spirit, Yusiki, or the Long-Armed Ape, they were all top geniuses who were capable of surpassing their ranks. Therefore, although they were at an absolute disadvantage in terms of numbers, they had a certain advantage in terms of strength. Just as he used sneak attacks and guerrilla warfare to kill 6 9th-grade supreme martial artists, 1/3 of the opponents they were fighting against had already been killed. When Su Hanwen successfully returned and killed the Iron Blood Prince and Prince Henin, only 1/3 of their opponents were left. Therefore, with the addition of the stronger, faster, and more ruthless Yuhauran, the remaining 1/3 of their opponents only lasted for less than 5 minutes before they were completely wiped out. Sister, Elder Blood Void, Elder Xianyuan, Elder Long-Armed Ape, please return to the Prince's mansion to rest. After killing the last 8th-grade Supreme Being expert, Yuhauran put away the celestial slaying sword and instructed Yusiki and the rest, who had exhausted a lot of their divine power and soul power. In response, Yusiki, the Blood Void Beast, and the Long-Armed Ape nodded. Then, after cupping their fists at Su Hanwen, they returned to the dilapidated Prince's mansion. Meanwhile, the Xianyuan Weapon Spirit brought the Xianyuan sword back to Lu Yuan's consciousness. Standing side by side with Su Hanwen, Yuhauran paid attention to the 4 symbols concentration formation that was still killing the experts from the Zhongli clan and the ancient underworld race, while communicating with the doomed spirit rat in his heart space. Half a year. The fate calamity spirit mouse reminded with a grave expression as it withdrew its claw from the destiny stone steel. Master, the massacre of more than 1,000,000 martial saints forced the destiny stone steel to activate the immeasurable calamity half a year earlier. Brother Hay, if that's the case, there are less than 8 months left before the immeasurable calamity begins, Howren said with a frown. Although he knew that too much killing would cause the destiny stone steel to speed up the opening of the immeasurable calamity, it was still a third slower than he expected. This made him feel a bit annoyed. After all, he still had to avenge his master and slaughter his way to the Spirit Mountain in the western region. He was prepared to slaughter more than 10 million living beings in the Spirit Mountain. He also had to help Emperor Qin kill the martial god and supreme ancestor of the Zhou clan, completely destroying the Zhou clan that had been passed down since the Middle Ages. The destructive power formed by the deaths of millions of living beings had already reduced the opening time of the immeasurable tribulation by a third. Then, wouldn't the destructive power formed by the deaths of more than 10 million living beings be enough to completely open the immeasurable calamity? Then, how would he and his close friends have the time to break through to the Supreme Realm? Master, other than the opening time of the immeasurable calamity being reduced by 8 months, the boundless evil qi, blood qi, and resentment formed by the deaths of more than 1,000,000 living beings has already blocked a third of the heavenly Tao's sensing ability. The fate calamity spirit mouse stood on top of the destiny stone steel and raised its head to look at the sky above the mountain range. The heavenly Tao's sensing ability has already lost a third of its sensing ability. It can no longer detect or block the return of the peak immortal realm experts to the Tianxian continent. After hearing the fate calamity spirit mouse's second warning, Howren couldn't help but change his expression. Originally, he thought that most of the Supremes and half-tribulation immortal realm experts had already died in the destruction of heaven and earth during the ancient, middle, and recent ancient eras. Only a small number of Supremes and half-tribulation immortal realm experts who were afraid of death had escaped into the boundless void. However, when he was rushing to the planet where the head of the Xingtian Supreme was sealed, and when he was fighting with the White Tiger, Vermilion Bird, and Black Tortoise Supreme, he unexpectedly sensed many experts who were hiding or in deep slumber. Moreover, the number far exceeded the hundreds he had expected. If the restriction of the heavenly Tao's law was lost before the opening of the immeasurable calamity, thousands of peak 9th grade Supremes and peak immortal realm experts would descend upon the Tianxian continent. Then, it would be a fatal crisis for the prince's mansion, which was still lacking in strength. Just as Howren was worrying about the fate of the prince's mansion, the four symbols concentration formation that was constantly churning gradually calmed down. Then, the divine beasts Blue Dragon, White Tiger, Vermilion Bird, and Black Tortoise, who looked slightly tired, appeared in front of him. At the same time, 20 corpses of Supremes from the Zhongli family and the ancient underworld clan floated in the air covered by the formation. Here, since the other party had fulfilled his request, Howren kept his promise and threw the 2 young Blue Dragon and 3 young White Tiger to the Blue Dragon and White Tiger. At the same time, his powerful divine thought swept up the 20 corpses of the Supremes and sent them to the prince's mansion. Let's go. After receiving the young Blue Dragon and White Tiger, the Blue Dragon glanced at the members of the Guardian family who were about to be slaughtered. Then, with a gloomy face, he ordered the White Tiger, Vermilion Bird, and Black Tortoise, turned around and tore open the void, intending to leave. Reptile, did I say you could leave? However, at this moment, Howren's indifferent voice suddenly sounded in the ears of the Blue Dragon and the other 3 divine beasts. Howren, what do you mean by this? The Blue Dragon looked at Su Hanwen with fear in its eyes and tried its best to maintain a calm tone as it asked. The 2 young Blue Dragon and 3 young White Tiger can leave safely. As for you 4 divine beasts. At this point, Howren pointed at the destroyed 1/3 of the prince's mansion, as well as the tens of thousands of corpses placed in the mansion's square, and said with a murderous look, "They must be buried with the dead of my prince's mansion. Yuhauran, don't go too far." Hearing that Yuhauran wanted to bury them along with those lowly lives, the hot-tempered white tiger divine beast handed over the 3 young white tigers to the black tortoise and threatened with murderous intent. "If you push us too far, we'll burn the bodies and divine souls of the divine beasts to exchange for the terrifying strength of the second tribulation immortal realm. Then, we'll set up the 4 guardians sky-destroying formation at the peak supreme level. At that time, even Senior Su, who's at the early stage of the third tribulation immortal realm, will have to consider the power of the 4 guardians sky-destroying formation." Before Yuhauran could refute the white tiger's threat, Su Hanwen took a step forward and waved the willow branch in his hand as he spoke calmly. Chapter 2075. In the mountain range where the 100 Chi Gate was located, facing the calm Su Hanwen, the murderous white tiger's aura suddenly weakened. Although burning his divine body and divine soul could give him the strength of a second tribulation immortal realm expert, it was limited by his cultivation. Therefore, he could only reach the early stage of the second tribulation immortal realm. Even if the 4 symbols destruction formation could increase their strength by dozens of times, they could only reach the peak of the second tribulation immortal realm. Compared to Su Hanwen, who had reached the early stage of the third tribulation immortal realm, there was still a huge gap between their strength. However, Yuhauran's next words made the white tiger fall into despair. "Little white cat, even if the 4 symbols destruction formation you set up after burning your divine body and divine soul can reach the peak of the third tribulation immortal realm, so what?" Yuhauran, who also took a step forward, threatened with a contemptuous look in his eyes. "The premise is that you can resist the speed of the space rules and the powerful lethality of the immortal slaying sword before you set up the 4 symbols destruction formation successfully." After hearing Yuhauran's threat, not only did the white tiger's eyes show endless despair, but even the divine beasts vermilion bird and black tortoise showed a hint of panic in their eyes. Only the blue dragon divine beast vaguely caught the hidden meaning in Yuhauran's threatening tone, so he quickly asked respectfully, "Yuhauran, what do you want us to do for you to let us live?" "It's very simple. As long as you sign a beast pet contract with my 4 close friends, you will be able to live." Yuhauran put away the contemptuous look in his eyes and tried to keep his tone as gentle as possible. Since the endless resentment, evil spirit, and bloody aura caused by the massacre of millions of lives had caused the heavenly way to be unable to continue restraining the peak of the 9th grade sovereign realm and the peak of the first tribulation immortal realm experts, he had to strengthen his strength. In that case, he had to do everything he could to increase the strength of the prince's mansion, whether it was the defense of the mansion or the strength of his family and friends. The spacetime Victor's time acceleration could allow Qin Lingfei, the sword without trace, and the 3 disciples to reach the martial god realm in a short period of time, allowing them to cooperate with the mansion to have a certain amount of life-saving power. However, to Wu Jingjun, Lu Yuan, Yusiki, Palace, and Qing Feng, who had already reached the martial god realm, the effects of the accelerated time and space on the profound mysteries of the universal law were detrimental to their cultivation. At the same time, every time the prince's mansion encountered a destructive disaster, it was always Wu Jingjun and the others who rushed to the front. Every time they resisted the disaster, it was always dangerous. Therefore, Yuhauran planned to use external means to allow them to have the ability to protect themselves in the shortest time possible. The 4 divine beasts in front of him, who had just reached the half-tribulation immortal realm, were the most powerful helpers that could protect them. When they heard Yuhauran's request, the blue dragon, white tiger, vermilion bird, and black tortoise immediately emitted a terrifying killing intent that was hard to suppress. The terrifying murderous aura immediately alerted Yusiki, the blood void beast, and the long-armed ape, who were cultivating in the mansion, as well as Lu Yuan, Wu Jingjun, the scarlet loathing beast, and Qing Feng, who were cleaning up in the mountain range. They all appeared beside Yu Haoran and glared at the four divine beasts, who were emitting terrifying murderous auras. Yusiki, my sister from the same mother. She has the supreme godly bone, which is one of the top 3 unique physique. She also has the supreme godly bone from the ancient era and the middle era. She has the potential to reach the half-tribulation immortal realm in a short period of time. Ignoring the terrifying killing intent emitted by the 4 divine beasts, Yu Haoran pointed at Yusiki and introduced her to half-tribulation immortal realm, ignoring the terrifying killing intent emitted by the 4 divine beasts. Then, he pointed at Lu Yuan and continued his introduction. Lu Yuan, my most respected senior brother. He is the son of darkness who has devoted his whole life to the sword. He has the guidance of the innate supreme treasure, Xian Yuan sword. He also has the potential to reach the half-tribulation immortal realm in a short period of time. Then, he pointed at Wu Jingjun and introduced him to Lu Yuan. Wu Jingjun, my junior brother who is like a brother to me. He has the devouring physique that allows him to transform into a blood sea and devour everything. Moreover, he has been recognized by the ancient Era's clan guarding divine swords, Yuan Tu and Avicii. He also has the potential to reach the half-tribulation immortal realm in a short period of time. Yu Haoran paused and thought for a while. Then, he called out to the sword without trace who was cleaning up the battlefield in the mountain range. Wu Hen, come here. Junior brother, what's wrong? The sword without trace, who had rushed to Yu Haoran's side, looked at the 4 divine beasts with fear and asked nervously. Jiang Fengyi put his arm around the sword without trace's shoulder and signaled her to keep quiet. Then, he introduced her to the 4 divine beasts. The sword without trace, my wife, Yu Haoran's true love. After introducing the sword without trace, Yu Haoran put away his gentle smile and asked coldly. Blue dragon, white tiger, vermilion bird, and black tortoise. Do the 4 people I introduced have the right to sign a pet contract with you? Yu Haoran, not to mention the 4 people you introduced just now, even if you are the child of destiny, I'm afraid you don't have the right to make us sign a pet contract. In the face of Yu Haoran's questioning, the blue dragon divine beasts didn't reject him outright. However, they used examples to show that they would never give in. Yu Haoran held the sword without trace and took a few steps back. He ordered Su Hanwen indifferently, Senior Su, let's do it. After 2 seconds, you will get 4 complete divine beasts' corpses. Waving the willow branch in his hand, Su Hanwen gave him the time needed to deal with the 4 blue dragon divine beasts. That's fine. When the time comes, bury them in the 4 directions of the mountain range. Then, use the formation to extract the essence of their bodies. This can greatly increase the spiritual energy of heaven and earth in the mountain range. Yu Haoran nodded in agreement and explained in detail the use of the corpses of the 4 divine beasts. Yu Haoran, wait. Without giving any chance to bargain, he directly ordered Su Hanwen to do it. He had already considered the use of their corpses after their souls were destroyed. Yu Haoran's resolute attitude just now let the blue dragon divine beast know that his signing of the pet contract was just a temporary idea. If they could sign the pet contract, everyone would be happy. If they couldn't sign the pet contract, the 4 siblings would have their souls destroyed, and Yu Haoran would get the 4 divine beasts' corpses alone. After calculating, Yu Haoran didn't lose anything at all. Moreover, through the destruction of their souls, he successfully deterred the forces hostile to the prince's mansion. Therefore, the blue dragon divine beast, whose pride was ground by the threat of death, already had the idea of giving in. However, he also needed to seek the opinions of the white tiger, vermilion bird, and black tortoise. Can you give us some time to discuss? Chapter 2076. Death, to all living things in this world, was something that they were extremely afraid of. At the same time, it was a reality that they were unwilling to accept. But to divine beasts who had an endless lifespan, the fear of death was even more intense. Especially when they could make a choice between life and death, the desire to live would make them give up a lot of beliefs and pride. Therefore, the four divine beasts didn't discuss for too long before the blue dragon respectfully replied to Yuhauran. Yuhauran, after our discussion, we've decided to agree to your request to sign a life and death contract with the sword without trace, Yusiki, Wu Jingjun, and Lu Yuan. But we also have two requests. The moment he got the blue dragon's approval, Yuhauran, who still maintained a calm expression, couldn't help but let out a long sigh of relief. After all, the blue dragon, white tiger, vermilion bird, and black tortoise in front of him not only had the strength of the initial half-tribulation immortal realm, but also had the ability to set up the supreme formation, the four symbols concentration formation. They were the most suitable pet beasts for close friends to sign a contract with. Therefore, as long as the blue dragon's request wasn't too excessive, he would give face to his new pet beasts and try his best to agree to their request. Say it. The first request is that the two direct descendants of the blue dragon, the three direct descendants of the white tiger, the one direct descendant of the vermilion bird, and the four direct descendants of the black tortoise must have the right to live alone in the prince's mansion. No problem. Although the prince's mansion wasn't very big when it was built, with the expansion of the formation set up by Thaling and his second doppelganger, and the double nourishment of the black-yellow spiritual qi and Xiantian spiritual qi, the interior space of the mansion wasn't inferior to the entire Xianying city. At the same time, taking advantage of the destruction of one-third of the mansion, he planned to renovate and expand the entire mansion. Therefore, in the face of the blue dragon's first request, he didn't give it much thought and directly nodded in agreement. Second request, please return the corpses of Supreme White Tiger and Supreme Vermilion Bird. Hearing the blue dragon's second request, Yuhauran was a little hesitant. After all, White Tiger Supreme was a formidable expert who was about to reach the second tribulation immortal realm. The life essence contained in his corpse was enough to raise the cultivation base and strength of his close friends to a whole new level in a short time. However, compared to obtaining four divine beasts that could continue to grow, the value of the Supreme White Tiger's corpse didn't seem that precious. Therefore, after careful consideration, Yuhauran nodded in agreement. There's no problem in returning Supreme White Tiger's corpse. Then, he changed his tone. However, I can't return Supreme Vermilion Bird's corpse. When Supreme Vermilion Bird was attacked by me and Senior Sue, it used the Phoenix's Nirvana secret technique to burn its divine body and soul. It didn't leave behind any corpse. After hearing Yuhauran's explanation, Vermilion Bird's eyes revealed a hint of sadness as it nodded at the blue dragon. Okay. Then the second request shall be to return Supreme White Tiger's corpse. After receiving Vermilion Bird's confirmation, Blue Dragon immediately changed the content of the second request. Let's begin. Yuhauran ordered calmly as he took out Supreme White Tiger's corpse from his consciousness space and placed it in front of White Tiger. Second brother, third sister, fourth brother, I'll go first. Blue Dragon, who was looking directly at the sword without trace, requested White Tiger, Vermilion Bird, and Black Tortoise. Big brother, you're the strongest and most likely to successfully break through to the immortal realm in a short time. I suggest you sign a beast pet contract with Lu Yuan, who's the strongest and has the most potential. Originally, Blue Dragon thought that after he proposed to sign a beast pet contract with the sword without trace, the White Tiger, Vermilion Bird, and Black Tortoise would definitely nod their heads and agree. After all, ever since the generation of their ancestor, the Azure Dragon Sovereign, the Azure Dragon lineage had always been in a dominant position. The White Tiger lineage, Vermilion Bird lineage, and black tortoise lineage had never had any objections. However, to his surprise, not only did the white tiger immediately refute his request, but even the vermilion bird also objected to it. Second brother is right. With big brother's rich experience, he should choose Lu Yuan, who's the strongest and has the highest potential. After cooperating with the white tiger to refute the blue dragon's request, the vermilion bird looked at the sword without trace and spoke with strong confidence. Moreover, the sword without trace is a girl. The person who signs a beast pet contract with her should also be me, a girl. After hearing the vermilion bird mention her advantage as a girl, the blue dragon and white tiger couldn't help but change their expressions. Because of her advantage, whether it was the sword without trace who signed a beast pet contract with the sword without trace's husband, Yu Haoran, it was hard for them to refuse. Without trace, go and sign a beast pet contract with the vermilion bird. Since subduing the 4 divine beasts was only a temporary idea, Yu Haoran didn't have a specific allocation plan for the blue dragon, the white tiger, the vermilion bird, and the black tortoise. Therefore, after hearing the azure dragon, white tiger, and vermilion bird's argument, as well as the vermilion bird's demonstration of her advantages, Yu Haoran immediately knew which mythical beast was truly suitable to sign a beast pet contract with Jian Wuhan. At the same time, he also decided to give the 9-colored feather that he had originally planned to give to Qin Lingfei to the sword without trace and the vermilion bird. After all, with the vermilion bird supreme's lifetime of cultivation comprehension and a large amount of pure fire energy, the sword without trace would be able to reach the martial god realm and sovereign realm as soon as possible. It would also allow the vermilion bird's direct bloodline to reach the peak of immortal realm. After hearing Yu Haoran's instructions, the vermilion bird's eyes immediately lit up with excitement. The blue dragon and white tiger, on the other hand, were obviously more dejected. They fought to sign a beast pet contract with the sword without trace not because of her talent and potential, but because she and Yu Haoran were a loving couple. Because with Yu Haoran's love and pampering for his lover, as long as she could become the beast pet contract with the sword without trace, then, not only would she not have to face many fatal dangers in the future, but she would also receive more protection from fate as the chosen one. However, since Yu Haoran had already made his decision, the blue dragon and white tiger turned their attention to Yusiki at the same time. Chapter 2077. In the mountain range where the 100 Qi Gate was located, Yusiki pointed at the blue dragon and the white tiger without hesitation as she faced their passionate gazes. "Big brother, I'm sorry." The white tiger was overjoyed when it saw that it was the one Yusiki had chosen to sign the pet contract with. It apologized to the blue dragon proudly and then rushed to Yusiki's side. Yu Haoran didn't object to this and nodded. His sister, who had reached the peak of unruffled emotions, was not only cold as ice, but also had a strong murderous aura. If she could sign a pet contract with the white tiger, who had a strong murderous aura, the power of the unruffled swordsmanship would be unimaginable. It might even help her break through the realm of unruffled emotions as soon as possible and reach the realm of unruffled emotions. Unruffled emotions, holy and rotten. Perhaps his sister was the one who was most likely to obtain the opportunity to break through the immortal realm in the immeasurable calamity. Moreover, the white tiger, who had just obtained the corpse of his ancestor, the white tiger, would not be filial enough to bury his ancestor and bring 3 young white tigers to worship him every year. He would probably use a special secret method to extract and refine the essence of his ancestors' flesh and blood to help him break through to the immortal realm. The sword without trace and Yusiki, who were the closest to Yu Haoran, had already been chosen by the vermilion bird and the white tiger. The blue dragon, who was very depressed, looked at Lu Yuan and Wu Xingjun respectively and then flew to Lu Yuan's side without hesitation. Lu Yuan did not show any dissatisfaction at being left behind, nor did he show any joy at obtaining the strongest divine beast. Instead, he signed a pet contract with the azure dragon with an indifferent expression. The black tortoise, who had not spoken a word from beginning to end, slowly flew to Wu Jingjun and said with a trace of sadness and reminiscence, "In ancient times, I woke up for a period of time when the Black Tortoise clan was in danger. During that period of time, I accidentally met the Blood Demon, who had just reached the martial god realm and was gradually showing his talent. Perhaps it was because we had gotten to know each other through fighting, or perhaps it was because I was very envious of the Blood Demon's unrestrained and lawless personality. Therefore, I accompanied him as a friend for 365 years. In the 365 years of companionship, we've experienced a total of over 1,100 battles of all sizes. Almost every day has been spent in killing and fighting. It was because of that period of blood and fire that I mastered the essence of the power of defense rules, which allowed me to catch up with Big Brother, Second Brother, and Third Sister in terms of cultivation and strength. At the same time, it was also because of the daily trials of life and death that the Blood Demon grew to the peak of 9th grade sovereign in just a few hundred years. The Black Tortoise's voice was filled with anticipation as it slowly regained its mountain-like body. Wu Jingjun, I hope that the pet contract between you and me can restore the glory of the Blood Demon and I in ancient times, and also allow us to climb to the final peak of martial arts together. After hearing the Black Tortoise's description and expectations, Wu Jingjun suddenly stepped onto the Black Tortoise's shell and said with a calm expression, "Although I, Wu Jingjun, have inherited Senior Blood Devil's clothes, I am confident that I can surpass Senior Blood Devil. Because I already have the Black Tortoise as my follower, and also because I have the help of my most respected brother." At this point, Wu Jingjun lowered his head and looked at the smiling Yu Haoran with a grateful look in his eyes. With the submission of the divine beasts Azure Dragon, White Tiger, Vermilion Bird, and Black Tortoise, the disaster that befell the prince consort's residence was officially over. After leading everyone back to the prince's mansion, Yu Haoran checked the mansion's condition through the core of the formation and found that the damage to the mansion was far more serious than he had imagined. In the end, he decided to remodel the prince's mansion before launching the expedition to the Spirit Mountain. Of course, although it was called a remodel, he only provided a large amount of divine veins and ideas. The ones who did the real work were his second clone and Thaling, who had just merged with the Mark of Chaos. After returning to the Hidden Moon Pavilion in the clear Cloud Peak, Yu Haoran took out the crystal coffin that contained his master's corpse from his storage ring. After reminiscing for a while, he sat cross-legged in the cultivation room. After that, he began to sort out the boundless void and the feelings he had when he was facing the siege just now. While improving his state of mind, he also began to increase his own potential to prepare for his breakthrough to the supremacy realm in the near future. Just as Yu Haoran and everyone in the prince's mansion were immersed in their cultivation, the entire Tianxian continent was gradually shrouded in an oppressive atmosphere. This oppressive atmosphere came from none other than the Chosen One, Yu Haoran, who could start the immeasurable calamity, and the prince's mansion behind him. More than 1 million experts in the martial saint realm and above, thousands of immortal divine spirit realm experts, hundreds of supremacy realm experts, and 4 half-immortal divine beasts besieged the prince's mansion that had only been established for less than 4 years. And the result? More than 1 million experts in the martial saint realm and above were annihilated. None of them could leave the mountain where the prince's mansion was located. The 4 divine beasts that had just entered the half-immortal realm were forcefully taken in as pet beasts by Yu Haoran's close friends and relative. They became the strength of the prince's mansion. Now, even the 4 great guardian families, the ancient demon clan, the ancient underworld clan, and the Zhongli clan were no match for the prince's mansion. Then, which force in the entire Tianxian continent could completely suppress Yu Haoran and the prince's mansion? If no one could suppress Yu Haoran, then when the immeasurable calamity really started, the chosen one who could control the fate of others through the calamity spirit mouse would be able to decide the life and death of others at will. For those forces and experts who didn't have much contact with Yu Haoran, they only felt a little oppressive and worried. However, for those who had a grudge against Yu Haoran, they fell into endless fear. Among them were the Zhou clan and the Lan clan. In the profound lake mountain range, inside the Zhou clan's palace, all the higher-ups of the Zhou clan gathered in the meeting hall. It was so quiet that one could hear a pin drop. Zhou Yuz, the patriarch of the Zhou clan, was not sitting on the patriarch's seat that originally belonged to him. He didn't even get to sit in the front row on the left and right. This was because the Zhou clan's current situation was the same as the Zhongli clan's some time ago. As the heavenly law gradually relaxed the restrictions on the Supreme Being experts in the Endless Void, many Supreme Being experts who lived in seclusion in the Endless Void returned to the Tianxian continent. However, there was a difference between the Zhou clan and the Zhongli clan. Although the Zhou clan had many ancestors who returned to the Tianxian continent, there were only 8 of them who had reached the Supreme Being realm. The rest were mostly in the martial god realm. But even so, the status and strength of those ancestors that returned to the Zhou clan far surpassed Zhou Zio's. In the end, it caused him, the patriarch, to be like Zhongli Qingyang, to only be able to sit in the corner of the hall. Chapter 2078. In the profound lake mountain range, in the Zhou clan's meeting hall. After sweeping his gaze across the 68 martial gods and martial saints in the hall, as well as the 7 martial emperor juniors in the clan, Zhou Qingming instructed with an indifferent expression. Everyone, speak. Let's talk about how we should deal with the threat from Yu Haoran and the prince's mansion. After hearing Zhou Qingming's instructions, everyone present looked at each other, but no one took the initiative to speak up. Since no one took the initiative to speak up, I'll call out names one by one. Zhou Qingming didn't show any signs of anger when no one took the initiative to respond. He calmly gave out instructions while choosing the first suitable person to express his opinion. Finally, his gaze stopped on a middle-aged scholar in his 40s with a scholarly appearance. Zhou Zhishuan, you go first. Replying to Prince Wise, with Yu Haoran and the prince's mansion's current strength, if we were to fight them head-on, our Zhou clan would definitely be no match for them. Therefore, I suggest making peace. Bang! Just as Zhou Zhishuan expressed his intention to make peace, the sound of someone slapping the armrest of the chair suddenly rang out in the hall. Subsequently, a middle-aged man with a rough appearance scolded with a booming voice. Zhou Zhishuan, you spineless coward! During the Middle Ages, when faced with the rebellion of the 7 vassals, it was because we listened to the advice of civil officials like you and pacified them in the name of making peace. This led to the rebellion of the hundreds of vassals, which ultimately led to the fall of the dynasty. Now, facing a mere prince consort of a vassal kingdom, you actually used the method of making peace to pacify him. Could it be that you want the entire Zhou clan to be completely destroyed? Facing the scolding of the rough man, Zhou Zhishuan was so angry that his body trembled. However, he had a stain on his record and was weaker than the other party, so he didn't have the courage to refute. In the end, he could only sullenly return to his seat. Siping, don't be unreasonable. Quickly apologize to Lord Zhishuan. Although the tone of the reprimand sounded quite strict, everyone in the hall could see from Zhou Qingming's slightly narrowed eyes that he admired Zhou Siping, as well as his strong attitude toward Yu Haoran and the prince consort residents. Therefore, all the people who were called out, regardless of whether they were civil or military officials of the previous dynasties, or the current martial god realm and supreme realm experts, aggressively expressed their attitude and determination to fight Yu Haoran to the death. However, Zhou Zhixuan, who was sincerely thinking for the Zhou clan and still had loyalty and patriotism in his bones, looked at the excited crowd in the hall and looked at Zhou Qingming, who had a happy smile on his face, with a worried expression in his eyes. After all, with the Zhou clan's current foundation, they simply didn't have the strength to go against the prince's mansion, nor did they have the slightest chance of winning. Therefore, after weighing the pros and cons, and after an intense struggle in his heart, Zhou Zhixuan finally decided to take the risk and remind him. Prince Wise, I also have the determination to fight Yu Haoran to the death. However, we need to consider in advance how to deal with the Spacetime Victor's weapon spirit, the Xianyuan Sword's weapon spirit, and the Blood Void Beast, whose cultivation has reached the peak of 9th grade Sovereign Realm. We also need to consider in advance how to deal with the 4 divine beasts that have just entered the half-tribulation Immortal Realm. We also need to consider in advance how to deal with Yu Haoran, who has the strength of First Tribulation Immortal Realm, and Su Hanwen, who has the strength of Third Tribulation Immortal Realm. Every person that Zhou Zhixuan mentioned in his reminder just now had forcefully weakened the aggressive atmosphere in the hall. When he mentioned Yu Haoran, who had mastered the rules of space, and Su Hanwen, who had the cultivation of Third Tribulation Immortal Realm, the hall fell into silence again. Although there was still a faint smile on Zhou Qingming's face, Zhou Zhixuan could clearly feel the sharp killing intent in Zhou Qingming's eyes when he looked at him. Although he was very puzzled about this, he still raised his head and looked at Zhou Qingming fearlessly. After retracting his gaze from Zhou Zhixuan, Zhou Qingming ordered Zhou Yuz with an indifferent expression, close the door and set up a formation to prevent being spied on. Yes, Prince. Zhou Yuz, who was forcefully suppressing the dissatisfaction in his heart, responded respectfully and quickly closed the door of the meeting hall. Then, he took out 9 upper-grade Level 1 God Stones and used them to activate the defensive formation that had been set up long ago. After using his divine sense to scan the profound lake mountain where the Zhou family was located and making sure that no one was spying on them, Zhou Qingming stood up abruptly and looked up at the roof of the hall. He cupped his fists and said respectfully. 3 days later, the Emperor, whose cultivation has reached the peak of First Tribulation Immortal Realm, will return. He has already formed an alliance with the 2 emperors of the Shang dynasty and the Xia dynasty. After hearing the shocking secret revealed by Zhou Qingming, everyone in the hall could not help but gasp. This was because they did not know that the founder of the Zhou family, the Emperor, was still alive. They also did not expect that the Emperor's cultivation had already reached the peak of First Tribulation Immortal Realm. However, what shocked them even more was that their ancestor, the Emperor, could actually persuade the Shang dynasty and the Xia family, who had a grudge against each other, to form an alliance. However, unlike the shock of everyone present, when Zhou Yuz found out that their ancestor, the Emperor, was still alive and was about to return to the Zhou family, an uncontrollable ecstasy emerged in his heart. This was because, in his opinion, as the descendant of the direct bloodline inheritance, he should be valued and treated more favorably by his ancestor. At least in terms of status, he should be far superior to the current Zhou Qingming. Zhou Qingming, who was very satisfied with the shock of everyone present, did not sit on the patriarch's throne and continued to speak respectfully. At the same time, the Emperor has also reached an agreement with Su Wanru, the 9-tailed green fox from the Green Hill Fox clan. If Yu Haoran invades with the experts from the prince's mansion, the Emperor will lead the army of the ancient demon clan to help. Moreover, she will use the newly refined 10,000 demon formation to completely seal off the void of the Dark Lake mountain range and trap and kill Su Hanwen, whose cultivation has reached the early stage of Third Tribulation Immortal Realm. If the news of the Emperor, the Shang dynasty, and the Xia family forming an alliance had only shocked everyone in the hall. However, the fact that the Emperor could obtain the help of the Green Hill Fox clan and the Ancient Demon clan made everyone in the hall fearful. They were fearful of the Emperor's forbearance that surpassed ordinary people. They were also fearful of the Emperor's means of turning something rotten into something magical. In the Lan family's encampment at the Lan Yu Lake. Chapter 2079. Qingyun Peak, Hidden Moon Pavilion. After spending nearly a day and a night, Yu Haoran slowly opened his eyes after converting the gains from his recent training into strength. There was a trace of worry and hesitation in his eyes. This was because when he was sorting out his gains from the endless void, the doomed spirit rodent, who had borrowed the chaotic spiritual energy converted from the innate crystal to break through to the next realm, was very lucky to break through to the 8th and 9th grade of the Supreme Martial Artist, and finally reach the mid-9th grade of the Supreme Martial Artist. The breakthrough of the realm also meant that his control and sensing of the Destiny Stone Tablet were stronger. Through the reaction of the Destiny Stone Tablet, the Destiny Calamity Spirit Rodent discovered that in the short span of one day and one night, at least 200 9th-grade Supremes in the early and middle stages of the Sovereign Realm had quietly descended upon the profound Sky Continent. This didn't include the late and peak 9th-grade Supreme Martial Artists and the One Tribulation Immortal Realm experts that he couldn't sense. Facing the sudden return of the 9th-grade Supreme Martial Artists and the One Tribulation Immortal Realm experts, Yu Haoran felt heavy pressure and was also considering whether to attack Spirited Mountain or not. Firstly, Spirited Mountain was the foundation of Buddhism. Buddhism was founded in the beginning of the Middle Ages and was one of the top forces in the Middle Ages. The number and strength of the top experts didn't lose to the 5 hidden families. Now, with the return of the 9th-grade Sovereign and the One Tribulation Immortal Realm experts to the Tianxian continent, he had no idea whether the Buddhist Supremes and the Half-Tribulation Immortal Realm experts who had fled to the Endless Void had returned to Spirited Mountain, and how many of them had returned. If he took the risk to attack, he didn't have any confidence that he could successfully take down Spirited Mountain with the current strength of the Prince's Mansion. Secondly, the Buddhism force that occupied 3/4 of the western region had developed and cultivated more than 10 million followers. If he successfully took down Spirited Mountain, would he be able to raise his butcher's knife and directly kill 10 million Buddhism followers to fulfill the promise he made in front of his master's corpse? Lastly, even if he was able to be cruel enough to kill 10 million Buddhism followers, then would the endless killing intent, resentment, and blood chi formed after the death of tens of millions of Buddhist believers affect the law of heaven? Would it cause the law of heaven to lose its suppression on the half-tribulation immortal experts in the endless void? Would it cause the return of all the 2 tribulation and 3 tribulation immortal experts? More importantly, would the aura of fate and destruction from the death of millions of Buddhist believers affect the immeasurable calamity from the Destiny Stone Tablet? After thinking about it, Yu Haoran felt that the battle at the spiritual mountain a day later was not a wise move. However, if he did not lead his troops to attack Battle Spirit Mountain, then the promise he had made in his grief and indignation would become a joke. It would become the topic of ridicule and discussion for billions of living beings. In desperation, he could only seek help from the Thaling in his sea of consciousness. However, in the face of his request for help, Thaling was also at a loss of what to do. After all, the aftermath of slaughtering tens of millions of Buddhist believers in Spirited Mountain was too serious. It was something he had never experienced before, and it was far beyond the scope of his ability to solve. Brother Yu, I have a way to eliminate the impact of the death of tens of millions of Buddhist believers on the law of heaven and the Destiny Stone Tablet. Just as Yu Haoran and Thaling were frowning, the voice of the first doppelganger suddenly came from the spacetime victor. Brother Hao, what good idea do you have? Yu Haoran was overjoyed and quickly asked. However, in the face of Yu Haoran's questioning, the first doppelganger used his own secret as an excuse and refused to tell him the solution no matter what. Brother Hao, the death of tens of millions of Buddhist believers not only involves the law of heaven and the loss of control of the Destiny Stone Tablet, but also the survival of our prince's mansion. I hope you are not joking with me and Thowling. The first doppelganger refused to reveal the solution no matter what, so Yu Haoran could not be at ease to launch the battle at the spiritual mountain. Therefore, he needed a 100% guarantee from the first doppelganger. Brother Yu, the method to remove the resentment and fate of the tens of millions of Buddhist believers is related to reincarnation. This is the only information I can reveal now. He knew that if he did not reveal any secrets, the cautious original body would not launch the battle easily. However, if the tens of millions of Buddhist believers did not die, he would not be able to complete the 18 levels of hell. Therefore, after careful consideration, the first doppelganger finally revealed a secret related to his current state. Reincarnation. When he heard the first doppelganger mention reincarnation, Thowling suddenly thought of the one-life reincarnation secret technique performed by the half-tribulation Supreme Master from Hell when he was setting up the stellar transposition formation, and the scene of the red spider lilies condensed suddenly disappearing. One-life reincarnation was inextricably linked to the law of 6 paths of reincarnation. The red spider lilies were the key to building the 18 levels of hell. At the same time, combined with the first doppelganger's overly calm and indifferent behavior when the prince's mansion was besieged by millions of troops led by the 4 great guardian families, a thought that could shake the entire Tianxian continent and the endless void gradually emerged in Thowling's mind. If the thought that emerged in his mind was true and could be realized in the end, then Yu Haoran, as the original body, would definitely have the hope of breaking the shackles of the Chosen One and completely climbing to the pinnacle of martial arts, becoming an eternal and indestructible existence. At the thought of this, Thowling immediately stopped Yu Haoran, who was about to continue interrogating the first doppelganger, and then took the initiative to cover up the fact that he had the method to solve the hidden danger of the battle. The first doppelganger's refusal to reveal any more secrets, and Thowling's assurance made Yu Haoran give up on the idea of continuing to ask. Then, he waved his hand and put away the crystal coffin placed in the cultivation room. Then, the space rule of teleportation allowed him to instantly return to the pavilion in the courtyard of the prince's mansion. He then used his divine thought to inform the blood-void beast that was recovering from its injuries. Yu Haoran, why are you looking for me? The blood-void beast quickly appeared in the pavilion and directly climbed onto the stone table and asked, "To fulfill my promise and give you the opportunity to return to the pinnacle of your realm," Yu Haoran said with a smile. Previously, the blood-void beast and the long-armed ape did not take the initiative to kneel on one knee and choose to submit to him, which made him wary and did not immediately give them the space rule crystal. Now, in the face of countless supremes and half-tribulation immortal experts returning to Spiritual Mountain in order to ensure the success of the battle in Spiritual Mountain, he had to think of all ways to increase the strength of everyone in the prince's mansion. The blood-void beast, whose realm had fallen to the peak of 9th-grade supremacy, was the one who had the highest chance of reaching the peak of First Tribulation immortal realm in a short period of time. Moreover, the reason why the blood-void beast chose to follow him willingly was because he had promised it before. Chapter 2080. In the Pavilion of the Prince's Mansion. The opportunity to return to the peak. After hearing Yu Haoran's reply, the blood-void beast immediately thought of the promise they made when they met in front of the treasury of the Blue Dragon family. It couldn't help but ask excitedly and nervously, "Yu Haoran, are you going to help me collect the scattered space rules of heaven and earth and help me return to the immortal realm?" After all, when the prince's mansion was about to be destroyed, Yu Haoran's incredible speed proved that he had successfully mastered the space rules of heaven and earth. According to the promise, he had the obligation and responsibility to collect the scattered space rules of heaven and earth. Here, Yu Haoran didn't explain too much to the Blood Void Beast's question. He directly handed the space rules of heaven and earth to the Blood Void Beast. This is the crystal that contains the pure space rules of heaven and earth. Although the aura of the crystal that Yu Haoran gave it was completely blocked due to the sealing formation, the Blood Void Beast, who could use the space rules of heaven and earth, sensed the pure space rules of heaven and earth in the crystal immediately. Although the crystal, which was originally as large as a mountain, had shrunk to the size of a baby's fist due to the sealing formation, the boiling blood that contained the law of space still allowed him to clearly sense the unimaginable amount of pure law of space stored in the crystal. Therefore, the Blood Void Beast was so excited that it didn't know what to say when Yu Haoran gave it the space rules of heaven and earth. Senior Blood Void, how long will it take for you to return to the peak of the immortal realm with this space rules of heaven and earth in front of you? The Blood Foe Beast's shocked and excited reaction did not surprise Yu Haoran at all, so he asked with an indifferent expression. Phew! The Blood Void Beast took 3 deep breaths to forcefully suppress the shock and excitement surging within its body before placing its claw on the spatial law energy crystal. It carefully sensed it for a moment before replying with a solemn expression. If I'm allowed to absorb the pure energy of the law of space in this crystal, I'll be able to return to the peak of the first tribulation, immortal realm in 6 hours and reach the second tribulation, immortal realm in 3 days. After hearing the Blood Void Beast's reply, Yu Haoran was pleasantly surprised. He pushed the space rule energy crystal in front of the Blood Void Beast and gestured generously. Senior Blood Void, take it and cultivate as you please. If it's not enough, I'll find a way to help you find the exact same spatial law energy crystal. The Blood Void Beast was extremely touched by Yu Haoran's generosity, but at the same time, a hint of regret welled up in its heart. It regretted that it was too arrogant and didn't show that it was willing to follow Yu Haoran to the death in front of everyone. As a result, it formed an untrustworthy estrangement with the people in the prince's mansion. The Blood Void Beast waved its claw and put away the space rules of heaven and earth. Without saying anything, it bowed to Yu Haoran with its front claw and flashed back to its own cultivation room to absorb the pure energy of the space rules of heaven and earth. After the Blood Void Beast left the pavilion, Yu Haoran let out a long sigh of relief, and a hint of satisfaction flashed through his eyes. Because the empty spirit mouse had just told him that the Blood Void Beast's action of bowing was actually the most solemn pledge of allegiance among the 5 spirit mice. At the same time, through the effects of the space rules of heaven and earth on the Blood Void Beast, Yu Haoran also began to consider the destruction rules of heaven and earth sealed in the space of his sea of consciousness. Although no one in the prince's mansion purely cultivated the law of destruction or the law of destruction, Yusiki comprehended and controlled the law of destruction, Wu Jingjun comprehended and controlled the law of devour, Palace comprehended and controlled the law of slaughter, and the law of universe comprehended and controlled by the long-armed ape were all supplementary profound mysteries to the law of destruction. If they borrowed the pure energy of the law of destruction contained in the space rules of heaven and earth, they could greatly increase the improvement of their own profound mysteries. As long as the level of their profound mysteries could be increased, for example, mental state cultivation, physical grade, divine power, and soul power, they could use divine pills and divine pills to achieve rapid breakthroughs. However, taking the risk of absorbing the energy of laws beyond one's comprehension was a fatal risk. After all, in order to return to the Tianxian continent as soon as possible, he had taken the risk of absorbing the space rules of heaven and earth within the space rules of heaven and earth. He had almost died. Therefore, whether to use the pure energy of the law of destruction contained in the space rules of heaven and earth to improve the profound mysteries, he still needed to seek the opinions of Yusiki, Wu Jingjun, Palace, and the long-armed ape. When Yusiki, Wu Jingjun, and Palace arrived at the pavilion in the courtyard and listened in detail to the benefits and risks of absorbing the law of destruction, they immediately chose to take the risk without any hesitation. In response, Yuhaoran did not persuade or remind them other than instructing Thaling and the empty spirit mouse to pay attention to their cultivation at all times. Afterward, he returned to the cultivation room in the courtyard and entered the space where Victor's time was accelerated. Then, according to the needs of the people in the prince's mansion, he began to refine divine pills and divine pills of different grades. Spirit Mountain, the foundation of Buddhism, was 99,999 meters tall. This caused the peak of Spirit Mountain to be shrouded in clouds all year round. On the peak of Spirit Mountain in the clouds, there were hundreds of Buddhist chairs of various sizes suspended in the air. Behind each Buddhist chair, there was a circle emitting Buddhist light. At this time, on the hundreds of Buddhist chairs of various sizes, there were hundreds of bald senior monks of Buddhism who were either sitting cross-legged, sitting upright, squatting, or half-lying. Just like the Zhongli and Zhou families. On the spacious Buddhist chair that originally belonged to the Master of Buddhism, there was a skinny senior Buddha sitting cross-legged with his eyes closed and a benevolent expression on his face. However, unlike Zhongli Qingyang and Zhou Yu's, the Master of Buddhism did not receive any attention. The Master of Buddhism was not neglected to the point where no one cared about him. His Buddhist chair was just below the High Buddha, the second seat among the hundreds of eminent monks of Buddhism. The skinny senior monk, who had his eyes closed, swept his gaze across the hundreds of senior Buddhas on the Buddhist chairs in the clouds and finally stopped on the Master of Buddhism. He then asked in a gentle tone, "Tathagata Buddha, what are your thoughts on the upcoming expedition to Spirit Mountain by the Chosen One, Benefactor Yu?" Although the skinny senior monk's tone was gentle, the Master of Buddhism, Tathagata Buddha's expression changed slightly and he quickly replied respectfully. Chapter 2081. Spirited Mountain. In the face of Tathagata's apology, the Buddha lords and Buddhas sitting on the chairs around the clouds either sneered, mocked, or sneered at him. Only the skinny monk continued to comfort him with a gentle smile. "My Buddha, everything has its own rules. Today, the trouble caused by your greed is still the result of the hidden danger of our Buddhism inheritance. It's not your fault. Amitabha, my Lord is merciful." Tathagata, the Master of Buddhism, hurriedly bowed with one hand in front of his chest to express his gratitude when he heard the forgiveness expressed in the skinny monk's consolation. "Tathagata, is there any possibility of resolving the hatred between Buddhism and the Child of Destiny?" The skinny monk continued to ask with a smile after he raised his skinny right hand slightly to signal Tathagata to stop being so polite. "The hatred of killing one's master is equivalent to killing one's father. There's no way to resolve it." Tathagata shook his head and replied with a gloomy expression. "What's more, Yuhaoran once swore an oath in front of Feng Qingyun's corpse that he would destroy Spirit Mountain's Buddhist heritage and slaughter tens of millions of Buddhist believers. Tathagata, with the foundation and accumulation of Buddhism for countless years, is it possible to eliminate the demon and eliminate the obstacle of destiny?" The skinny monk asked with a smile. "If Amitabha, my lord, and the other Buddha lords and Buddhas had arrived, Spirited Mountain would have been defeated and millions of Buddhism believers would have been slaughtered. But now?" Although the Lord of Buddhism Tathagata did not continue speaking, the meaning he wanted to express was clear at a glance. This also made the many Buddha lords and Buddhas sitting on the Buddha chairs around the cloud and mist smile with satisfaction. However, at this moment an ethereal voice suddenly sounded from the cloud. "Ami Amateus Buddha, Shur Su Zaitian Buddha, Sakra Futian Buddha, Bodhi Clear Sky Buddha, Fa Sien Shengtian Buddha, you're only at the peak of the first tribulation of a mortal realm. How are you going to deal with Su Hanwen, who's at the early stage of the third tribulation of a mortal realm? Sun Wukong, the victorious fighting Buddha." Tathagata, the Master of Buddhism, suddenly got up and looked around when he heard the ethereal voice in the clouds. Then, he gritted his teeth and shouted out the origin of the voice. At the same time, the expressions of the Buddha Lord and the Buddhas on the cloudy mist Buddhist chairs changed drastically. They immediately released a huge and terrifying wave of divine consciousness to track down the owner of the voice. But in the end, he found nothing. Only the skinny monk looked at the Buddha chair of the Lord of Buddhism, Tathagata, and said with a smile, "Brother, no matter what, you were able to see through the mystery of the rules and obtain a trace of the aura of eternity. It's all thanks to the power of the law of karma that I inherited from Buddhism. So, no matter what you've come for, why don't you show yourself for a chat? It seems that I have underestimated you, Amitabha Buddha." Just as the shriveled monk finished his invitation, a monkey wearing golden armor, a golden crown, cloud shoes, and a hairy face appeared on the Buddha's chair of the Buddha Tao. "Get down here!" Tathagata, the Lord of Buddhism, roared when he saw Sun Wukong, the victorious fighting Buddha, standing on his Buddha's chair. However, in the face of Tathagata's Buddha's palm, Sun Wukong only glanced at it coldly. His invisible gaze not only directly pierced through the Buddha's palm, but also directly blasted Tathagata out of the clouds. In this regard, the shriveled monk did not help Tathagata, the Lord of Buddhism, nor did he scold Sun Wukong. He just watched coldly from the sidelines and let them fight. "Brother, have you calmed down?" After Tathagata, the Lord of Buddhism, was blasted out of the clouds, the shriveled monk asked with a gentle smile on his face again. Doppelganger merging with doppelganger, one tribulation within two tribulations, Amitabha Buddha is really good. Sun Wukong, who slowly landed on the Buddha's chair, carefully stared at the shriveled monk for a while, and said with an extremely solemn look in his eyes. When he heard Sun Wukong point out his true hidden state, the shriveled monk, who had always maintained a gentle smile since returning to Spirit Mountain, changed his expression for the first time. At the same time, a strong murderous intent immediately emerged in his heart. However, when the murderous intent emerged, his sharp sixth sense immediately made him feel a fatal danger. This made him forcibly suppress the murderous intent that emerged in his heart, and he could not help but carefully size up Sun Wukong. When he saw the starry river in Sun Wukong's deep eyes, he suddenly realized something. When he saw the sun, moon, and stars wrapped in Sun Wukong's three wheels of heaven, earth, and man, a flash of inspiration suddenly flashed in his mind. This made the shriveled monk immediately realize Sun Wukong's true origin. "I didn't expect it, I really didn't expect it. Not only are you the wise stone monkey, ranked first among the 4 great spiritual monkeys, but you are also the wise stone monkey that was born in ancient times." When he heard that the shriveled monk recognized him, Sun Wukong, who was sitting upright on the Buddha's chair, also could not help but change his expression. Due to the bloodline talent of knowing the time and place, it allowed him to sense the danger of his soul being destroyed when ancient times were destroyed. Therefore, he used the method of moving stars in advance to transfer a trace of his soul and bloodline essence to a piece of chaos stone that contained chaos yuan qi at the beginning of heaven and earth. Using the pure chaos yuan qi in the chaos stone, he cultivated a wise body that could contain a half-tribulation immortal soul. Finally, after an entire period of nurturing, it finally broke out of the stone in the late ancient times. However, because the soul had been in a deep slumber for too long, the wise body was able to nurture a new soul. It was only when the new soul controlled the wise body to enter Buddhism and cultivate the law of karma that the sleeping soul could be considered awakened. Finally, it recovered the glory of the ancient wise stone monkey and directly defected from Spirit Mountain of Buddhism and settled down in the Death Swamp. "Brother, since you and I already know each other's background, there's no need to continue guessing. Just tell me what your purpose is." Sun Wukong's sudden change in expression made the shriveled monk feel that he had successfully turned the tables. After his gloomy expression was replaced by gentleness, he went straight to the point. "Doppelganger fused with doppelganger, one tribulation within two." Then, together with the doppelganger of the 4 Buddha Masters who are at the peak of the 1 Tribulation Immortal Realm, we should be able to easily kill Su Hanwen, who is at the early stage of the 3rd Tribulation Immortal Realm. Sun Wukong, who had also put away his gloomy expression, glanced at the more than 100 Buddha Masters and Buddhas on the Buddha's chair, and said indifferently, 36 Buddha Masters who are at the peak of the 1 Tribulation Immortal Realm and 72 Buddhas who are at the peak of the 9th grade Supreme Realm are enough to kill all of Destiny's Child's close friends and family. 136 Bodhisattvas who are at the Supreme Realm and 365 Arhats who are at the Martial God Realm are enough to easily slaughter everyone in the prince's mansion. Speaking of this, Sun Wukong slowly stood up and looked at Tathagata, the master of Buddhism, who had fallen into the clouds and did not return to the Buddha's chair. His eyes revealed a trace of complex emotions as he spoke. Originally, seeing that the Buddhist Tao's inheritance of the law of karma was able to awaken my slumbering soul, I intended to help the Buddhist Tao resolve the hatred between you and Destiny's Child, so that you can continue to retain a part of the Buddhist Tao's inheritance. Now, it seems that I have underestimated the foundation of Buddhism's inheritance, and even underestimated the patience and scheming of Amitabha Buddha Master. After retracting his gaze from Tathagata, Sun Wukong soared into the sky and left the clouds of Spirit Mountain. Then, he quickly returned to the forbidden area of the Death Swamp. Whoosh! Chapter 2082. Inside the Prince's Mansion. With the help of the Time Victor's ability to accelerate time, Yu Haoran spent 3 years refining 9 kinds of divine elixirs, 18 kinds of divine elixirs, and 162 kinds of level 1 divine elixirs. After that, he stepped out of the accelerated time-space and returned to the pavilion in the courtyard. Then, he wrapped all the divine elixirs with his divine consciousness and sent them to Qin Lingfei, the Sword Without Trace, and Yusiki. Then, he told them in detail about the effects of the divine elixirs and divine elixirs. After giving away all the divine elixirs and withdrawing his divine consciousness, Yu Haoran looked at the western region with a strong killing intent in his eyes. However, at this moment, Su Hanwen suddenly appeared beside him and reminded him with a solemn expression. "Little friend Yu, I don't know what's going on, but I suddenly can't concentrate and enter a state of meditation. I feel very agitated." After hearing Su Hanwen's reminder, Yu Haoran withdrew his gaze from the western region and looked at Su Hanwen with a trace of doubt in his eyes. Ever since the profound mysteries of the laws had become edicts, experts at the autarch level and above would rarely show any signs of impatience. Even if they were about to encounter a fatal danger, it would rarely affect their calm state of mind. So, why would Su Hanwen, who had already obtained a trace of the eternal immortal aura and had reached the immortal realm 3 tribulation, be in such a state of unease? He slowly closed his eyes and activated the memory inheritance of the Destiny Stone Tablet to find the reason why Su Hanwen was in such a state. In the end, in the enormous memory inheritance, he saw such a record. After the eternal immortal aura offset each other, the shackles of fate would descend and the weaker party would instinctively sense it. Su Hanwen was already at the early stage of the immortal realm 3 tribulation, so the amount of eternal immortal aura he had obtained was astonishing. In order to completely neutralize Su Hanwen's eternal immortal aura, one had to be an early stage 3 tribulation immortal realm expert at the same level as him or have the means to fight against an early stage 3 tribulation immortal realm expert. Yu Haoran turned his gaze back to the western regions, his eyes brimming with fear. After all, there was less than a day before he had to lead the people from the prince's mansion to conquer Soul Mountain. The only opponents that could make Su Hanwen feel uneasy were those half-tribulation, immortal realm experts who had returned to Soul Mountain. 10 seconds later, he took a deep breath and forcefully withdrew the fear in his eyes. Then, a relaxed smile appeared on his face as he suggested. Senior Su, since you can't concentrate and enter a meditative state, why don't you take a walk around the Prince Consort's residence and the mountain range? Take a look around and completely relax your mind. Perhaps you'll be able to eliminate the influence of your impatience. Alright. Although he knew that Yu Haoran's suggestion wouldn't work on a powerhouse like him, walking around and taking a look was the only choice he had. Therefore, Su Hanwen nodded and replied. Then, he stepped out of the prince's mansion and descended on the mountain range below the mansion. Then, he began to wander around like an ordinary old man. The moment Su Hanwen left the prince's mansion, Yu Haoran immediately mobilized the space rules he controlled and crossed the southern regions and the central regions. Then, he directly appeared in the western regions, which was millions of miles away from Soul Mountain. Then, he took out the void mirror that had lost its weapon spirit from Victor. Using the space rules he controlled and the space rules energy in the void mirror, he quietly appeared in Soul Mountain. Yu Haoran raised his head to look at the peak of the spiritual mountain that was hidden in the clouds. He didn't soar into the air, nor did he use any of his divine power or soul power. He only relied on his powerful physical body to climb step by step. When he reached the mountainside of Soul Mountain and saw the continuous palaces and pavilions in front of him, an idea suddenly emerged in his mind and made him stride straight toward the palaces and pavilions. This is. When he crossed dozens of palaces and came to a high platform paved with square steps, Yu Haoran's eyes flashed with astonishment when he saw tens of thousands, hundreds, and dozens of Buddhist experts sitting cross-legged on each step. In order to avoid being discovered by the Buddhist experts of Soul Mountain, although he didn't use any divine thought, his eyesight that wasn't inferior to the half-tribulation immortal realm allowed him to see the true cultivation of those Buddhist experts sitting cross-legged on the step. There were more than 1 million Martial Saint Realm Buddhist experts, more than 100,000 Martial Venerable Realm Buddhist experts, more than 10,000 Emperor Wu Realm Buddhist experts, more than 1,000 Martial God Realm experts, more than 100 Supreme Realm experts, dozens of 1 Tribulation Immortal Realm experts, and 4 Peak 1 Tribulation Immortal Realm experts sitting cross-legged on the high platform. At this moment, the terrifying strength displayed by the Buddhist experts of Soul Mountain had far surpassed the 4 great guardians and the 5 great hidden families. At this moment, Yu Haoran knew that with the shallow foundation of the prince's mansion, it was impossible for him to be a match for countless Buddhist experts of Soul Mountain. When a skinny senior monk in a gray Buddhist robe with a gentle smile slowly landed on the high platform, Yu Haoran turned around and left Soul Mountain without any hesitation. Then, he used the rules of space and the void mirror to return to the prince's mansion. Because that skinny senior monk gave him the feeling of facing Su Hanwen for the first time. In other words, the senior monk was either a terrifying early stage 3 Tribulation Immortal Realm expert, or he had the strength to deal with an early stage 3 Tribulation Immortal Realm expert. At this moment, he finally knew the reason why Su Hanwen felt uneasy. At this moment, he also finally understood why Buddha Tathagata didn't escape from the boundless void as soon as possible. Sitting on the stone chair in the pavilion, Yu Haoran's face was as gloomy as water. At the same time, there was a trace of regret in his eyes. If he had known that massacring 1 million Martial Saint experts of the 4 Guardian clans would cause so many Buddhist experts to return to the Spirit Mountain, he would have directly charged towards the Spirit Mountain of the Buddhist inheritance the moment the empty spirit rat succeeded in its tribulation. In that case, not only could he fulfill his vow, but he could also easily slaughter millions of Buddhist creatures. However, now that he had found out, it was too late to regret. Therefore, after quickly putting away his regret, Yu Haoran told Faling about his current predicament in detail to see if he had a solution. However, it was a pity that ever since the peak ninth grade Supremes and half-tribulation immortal realm experts in the endless void were able to condense their projections onto the Tianxian continent, the Tower Spirit had gradually lost its previous omniscient and omnipotent confidence and means. Especially after Yu Haoran had successfully broken through the martial god realm and obtained the strength of a one-tribulation immortal realm expert with the help of the immortal slaying sword, Thaling could only obey orders. Chapter 2083. In the Wind Pavilion of the Prince's Mansion. Could it be that he had to break the promise he had made and give up the battle of Buddhism on Spirited Mountain? There was no way to deal with Buddhism on Spirited Mountain at all. This made Yu Haoran want to give up and retreat for the first time. This also made Thaling, who was in the space of the Sea of Consciousness, very anxious. If Yu Haoran had not successfully comprehended the power of the laws of life and death before his cultivation had advanced to the martial sage realm, then, in the face of an unsolvable predicament, breaking the promise and retreating would only affect his reputation. But now, he was already a god in the complete 10th grade martial god realm. He was also the chosen one who could control the fate of others. Then, breaking the promise and retreating would not only cause his fate to be greatly weakened, but also affect his firm Taoist heart. Thus, he would lose the opportunity to break free from the shackles of fate and the hope of reaching the peak of martial arts. Therefore, Thaling, who could not find a solution after thinking hard, could only rely on the advantage of being an artifact spirit to force his way into Victor's room where the first doppelganger was. This was because he felt that the first doppelganger, who had been hiding, might have a solution. As Thaling's intrusion was not only unexpected but also silent, the first doppelganger had no time to put away the foundation of the 6 paths of reincarnation and the 18 levels of hell that were being tempered. Looking at the first doppelganger who hurriedly put away the disc and the black tower, Thaling sat cross-legged in front of him and sighed in a tone that was not surprised at all. Actually, I already had doubts in my heart when the energy of the red spider lilies condensed by the half-tribulation supreme master of the Hell organization used the secret reincarnation method and inexplicably disappeared. When you mentioned that there was a way to eliminate the endless evil spirit, endless blood qi, and resentment formed after the deaths of millions of Buddhist believers, and the influence on the rules of the Way of Heaven and the Destiny Stone Tablet, I had already guessed your secret plan. Now, when I see the foundation of the 6 paths of reincarnation and the 18 levels of hell that are about to be completed, I can already be 100% certain that you intend to reconstruct the 6 paths of reincarnation that can allow living beings to reincarnate and construct a hell that maintains the perfect operation of the heavenly laws. Not only was Thaling able to recognize the round plate and the black tower at a glance, but he was also very clear about what he was doing. As such, the first clone didn't continue to hide anything. Instead, he took out the 6 paths of reincarnation foundation and the 18 black towers of hell that he was refining. Is it worth it? Thaling couldn't help but ask as he watched the first clone close its eyes and continue hammering the disc and black tower. Whether it was the foundation of the 6 paths of reincarnation or the 18 levels of hell, they were only the foundation of the hell of reincarnation. In order for the hell of reincarnation to play the role of reincarnation, punishing evil and promoting good, and to be recognized by the world, not only did the first clone have to comprehend and control the 6 paths of reincarnation, but he also had to sacrifice his body and divine soul to fuse with the 6 paths of reincarnation. Although the first clone wouldn't die in this situation, it would be suppressed in the hell of reincarnation for eternity, no different from a criminal who had been imprisoned for countless years. Of course it's worth it. The first clone slowly opened its eyes and nodded with a calm expression. Although the original body intends to use the law of cause and effect to strip the Destiny Stone Tablet of the power of destiny to resist the law of heaven, the final result will be a tie at most. With the law of heaven, there must be a way to counterattack. If I can successfully create the hell of reincarnation before the end of the immeasurable calamity, I'll be able to obtain the merit of heaven and earth that even the law of heaven and earth can't interfere with. At that time, I'll use the method of the original body and the clone to give the original body the merit of heaven and earth. The original body can use it to resist the law of heaven and earth's counterattack, and also reach the immortal realm. Speaking up to there, the first clone temporarily stopped tempering the foundation of the 6 paths of reincarnation and the 18 levels of hell before instructing with a solemn expression. Therefore, Old Tower, before the immeasurable calamity officially begins, you must let the original body destroy the top forces in the Tianxian continent and kill as many half-tribulation, immortal realm experts as possible. Only in this way can we weaken the counterattack of the law of heaven to the greatest extent. Only in this way can we seize the opportunity in the immeasurable calamity. I know, but... Thaling nodded and was about to tell the first clone about Yuhauran's predicament when the first clone raised his hand to interrupt him and continued to instruct him with a solemn expression. Thaling, before the immeasurable calamity officially begins, you must let the top experts in the prince's mansion raise their cultivation to the peak of 9th grade sovereign realm. Only in this way can I use the essence of countless creatures after their deaths to help them break through to the peak of 3rd tribulation immortal realm, and let them become the strongest helpers for the original body to resist the law of heaven. I know. After nodding, Thaling did not rush to tell the story of Yuhauran's predicament. Instead, he looked straight into the eyes of the first clone, intending to wait until the first clone finished instructing him. However, the first clone did not continue to instruct him and slowly closed his eyes. Thaling hurriedly stopped him and immediately told the first clone about Yuhauran's predicament in detail. After hearing Thaling's explanation, the first clone did not show the slightest worry. He just frowned slightly and pondered for a while before giving a solution. The King of Hell and fierce beast Mantis at the peak of 2nd Tribulation Immortal Realm, 5 Kings of Hell at the peak of 1st Tribulation Immortal Realm, 16 Guardians of Hell at the peak of 9th Grade Sovereign Realm, and 36 Messengers of Hell at the peak of 9th Grade Martial God Realm. But don't let the original body know that it's my method. No problem. After hearing the number of helpers the first clone could ask for, Thaling felt excited and hurriedly nodded to assure him. I have a way to arrange a reasonable excuse for the King of Hell and fierce beast Mantis to take action. Okay, I have to hurry up and refine the foundation of the 6 paths of reincarnation and the 18 layers of hell. You can go ahead with your work. The first clone, who believed that the experience Thaling could perfectly cover for him, slowly closed his eyes and instructed. Thaling could not suppress the excitement in his heart and nodded. After leaving the original body of the victor, he said to Yuhauran, who was still in a dilemma. Yuhauran, I accidentally merged with part of the memory left by the previous weapon spirit and learned that the King of Hell and Meta Beast Mantis owed the previous weapon spirit a favor in ancient times. I can use this favor to ask them to help us deal with the experts of Buddhism in the Spirited Mountain. Thaling, are you sure? Yuhauran immediately asked excitedly. Whether it was fierce beast Mantis or the giant spirit-devouring ant of the King of Hell, he had witnessed their powerful strength with his own eyes. You're tuning in to the Phoenix Knights YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.